Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had a Broken Glitch Quirk? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Midoriya, who has been missing for over a year, has just been located. Police are questioning the young boy about what happened and where he has been. More news will follow as updates come in. That was a year ago. After discovering that Izuku's mind wasn't completely there following the treatment he received during his kidnapping, he was placed in a facility for rehabilitation. A year later, he was released to attend high school. However, no school wanted him due to the fear of villains targeting their students. Since Izuku had been forcefully given his quirk, he had little control over it. The principal of UA High, Nizu, proposed that UA take him in. They could teach him to use his quirk properly, protect him from being kidnapped again, and help the students understand his situation. However, Izuku still had to take the entrance exams to get in. On the day of the entrance exam practical, Inko fussed over Izuku's shirt, smoothing out the little creases that had appeared from his movements that morning. Now be careful, Izuku. Do your best and don't worry if you fail. Don't forget your medication and coping strategies, okay? I don't want you to get hurt or hurt yourself. I'll be fine, Mom. It's been 2 years. I think I have the hang of it, Izuku replied cheerfully. And Kaken will be there. You've been excited to see Katsuki, she said, smiling at her happy son. Yeah. Izuku glanced at the clock and gasped. I need to go. Bye, Mom. Love you. He quickly planted a loving kiss on her cheek, grabbed his backpack, slipped on his red shoes, and dashed out the door. After a quiet train ride and a short walk, Izuku arrived at UA. He entered excitedly, taking in all the students around him, when he kicked a rock and started to stumble. He instinctively put his arms out to catch himself but found he wasn't falling. He looked around to see that he was floating. Whoa! Sorry, I used my quirk on you without permission. It'd be bad if you tripped, right? Don't want to start out on the wrong foot, a cheerful girl with light brown hair in a bob cut said. She gently set Izuku back on the ground before releasing her ability and saying goodbye before he could respond. Izuku quickly made his way to the hall to get the details of the exam. He felt a rush of excitement when he saw Present Mike. He looked around at all the students, bouncing his leg up and down. Present Mike began explaining how the exam would work, but after detailing the point system, a young man stood up and asked about the 4 robots pictured in the handout when Present Mike had only mentioned 3. The 4th one is a robot best avoided. It's worth 0 points and is a nuisance. If you see it, run the other way to score more points. Mike explained. Also, you there, the blue-haired boy pointed at Izuku, startling him. Are you aware you're bouncing your leg? It's distracting to the students around you. I'm sorry, Izuku mumbled, pushing his leg down to stop the bouncing. The young man sat down, and Mike continued. After the introduction, the students were separated and sent to their respective city blocks for the test. Izuku marveled at the different types of quirks he could see. He spotted the girl who had helped him that morning and started to approach her but was stopped by the blue-haired boy. Can't you see that girl is trying to get ready? Some of us actually want to do well on this exam, he said. I know. Izuku mumbled. So do I. Before the boy could respond, Mick's voice boomed across the grounds. Okay, everyone, get ready, he announced. All the students took their positions, while Izuku stood there like a lost puppy. At that moment, the doors opened. Unable to contain his excitement, Izuku rushed into the city block behind him, hearing Mike remind everyone that there is no start in a real battle. During the exam, Izuku managed to disable several robots without using his quirk. He simply pulled out wires, causing them to shut down or explode. While he was dismantling a 2-pointer, the ground suddenly began to shake. Izuku looked around and saw a giant robot towering over the tallest buildings in the city block. There was no way to miss it. As all the students began to run away, excitement bubbled up in Izuku's chest. I wonder how I could take down that robot, he thought eagerly. Just then he heard a cry. He almost missed it amidst the chaos of students fleeing from the giant robot. He looked around and saw the girl from before trapped under some rubble. "Are you okay?" he asked, rushing over. "I can't move," she replied. Izuku glanced from the rubble to the girl and then back to the giant robot that was still advancing toward them. "I can use my quirk, but—" he hesitated. "But I don't have much control over it," he confessed. He looked back at the robot and then smiled. "I'll be back." Izuku dashed toward the robot, hopped onto its leg, and squeezed in between the protective plates. He climbed up as quickly as he could. Just as he reached its head, the robot began to move faster, targeting the fleeing students. Izuku clambered onto its head and dangled over, peering into its eye. The robot halted, startled by his sudden appearance. "Cool, it's so red!" Izuku exclaimed happily. He punched the red lens and reached into the robot's head, grabbing a handful of wires and pulling with all his might, ripping them out. He did this 3 times before the robot jolted and then slumped, lifeless. He made his way back down and over to the girl. Finding a broken pole, he wedged it between the rubble and the ground. "Get ready to pull yourself out," he said. He put all his weight onto the pole, and the rubble lifted just enough for the girl to pull herself free. "Thank you," she said. Izuku smiled at her and turned to find more robots, but he tripped on some concrete. The girl caught him just before he fell, but after releasing him, she quickly turned away and became ill. "Time's up. Anyone who is injured, please go to Recovery Girl's office for healing." Present Mike announced. "Sorry you couldn't get any more points," the girl said. "It's okay," Izuku replied cheerfully. He waved to her and skipped away, humming happily. When he returned home, he excitedly told Inko all about the exam and what had happened. "Oh, you're such a good boy, saving that young girl," Inko exclaimed. "I'll make your favorite katsudon to celebrate." "Yay!" Izuku shouted, throwing his arms up in joy. He jumped off the couch and ran to his room, eager to write down everything he could about the quirks he had witnessed. After about a week, the UA letter arrived in the mail. Izuku opened it, and a hologram disc slipped out. He placed it on the table and it started up. "I am here as a hologram." Izuku instantly recognized the voice. "That's right, it is I, All Might." "Why yes? Because starting this year, I'm going to be a teacher at UA High School." Now, on to the rest. Izuku Midoriya, you scored 150 points, which is unfortunately not enough to pass. However, due to your heroic actions, you received what we call rescue points, bringing your total up to 280. Congratulations, Midoriya. You have been accepted into the hero course of UA. Plus Ultra. Izuku grabbed the disc and ran down to the living room to see his mom. "I passed, Mom. I passed," he yelled happily. In his excitement, he accidentally pitched the hologram disc, causing it to embed into the wall. Realizing what he had done, tears sprang to his eyes. "I'm sorry," he cried. Inko rushed to her son and hugged him tightly. "It's okay, you were excited. No one got hurt, and that's all that matters." "Congratulations, Izuku," Inko said, squeezing him closer. Soon, it was the first day of school. Izuku was so excited that he got up super early. Inko was happy her son was looking forward to school. She remembered the years before his kidnapping when he would return home with bruises and small burns. She knew he was being bullied, but since he never spoke about it, she didn't know how to help. She was glad he would have Katsuki at school as well, but she worried about how he would react. Katsuki hadn't seen Izuku for 2 years, and because of the incident, Izuku's personality and mannerisms had changed quite a bit. "I'm ready to go, Mom," he called out. "Okay, be safe, and remember to be careful with others as well," she reminded him. He gave her a bright smile and playfully saluted. "Yes, I will remember to play nicely," he said. Izuku checked his things one last time before heading out to the train station to go to school. When he arrived, he looked for his classroom and soon located the giant door with 1 written on a sign next to it. "Ah, found it. I almost got lost," he said. Taking a deep breath, he slid the door open and looked at his classmates. The first thing he noticed was a blue-haired boy going mad at another student. Izuku beamed when he saw the familiar spiky blonde hair and heard the same aggressive voice he remembered. He walked into the classroom. "Ah, you." Izuku jumped when he was suddenly called out by the robot-like boy. I apologize for my rude comments during the test. You were able to figure out the hidden meaning behind it, he said. Hidden meaning? Izuku asked, confused. You made it. Izuku turned at the sound of another voice, a bubbly one. He saw a girl with a brown bob smiling brightly at him, which made him happy. My name is Tenya Ida, the robot boy said. And mine is Achiko Uraraka, the girl next to him added. I'm Izuku Midoriya, he said happily, introducing himself. Suddenly, he sensed something strange behind him and turned around to see a yellow, sack-like creature. Intrigued, Izuku squatted down to get a better look as it moved toward the teacher's podium. Soon, a human popped out of it. The sound of a zipper could be heard as the man stepped out from the sack. It took you a minute to quiet down. My name is Shota Aizawa, and I'm this class's homeroom teacher. Put these on and meet me outside, Aizawa announced, tossing a sports uniform to a student before leaving. After a few minutes, the class was outside on the sports ground. What about orientation? Uraraka asked. Orientation is a waste of time. At this school, teachers are free to teach how they want. Today, I want to do a fitness test like the ones at normal schools, but this time with quirks. And to add a twist, whoever comes last will be expelled. Bakugo Katsuki, what's your highest score when throwing a softball? Aizawa asked. 500 meters, Bakugo replied. Here, throw this, but this time use your quirk. Bakugo took the softball from Aizawa's hand and positioned himself behind a white line. Izuku noticed a smirk appear on his friend's face before he pulled his arm back to throw the ball. Die! Bakugo yelled as he threw the ball, an explosion propelling it high into the air. Aizawa looked at a small screen and then showed it to the class. 750 meters. Now everyone else do it. Uraraka-san, you got infinity. That's amazing. That means your ball could reach the moon. Izuku said happily. Uraraka rubbed the back of her head with a shy smile. Soon, it was Izuku's turn. He went to activate his quirk to throw the ball, but nothing happened, and it dropped to the ground. Confused, Izuku looked at his hand. He looks to Aizawa-sensei. I stopped your quirk, he says. You have almost no control over it. I can at least throw a ball with it, Izuku replies sadly. All right then, throw it again, Aizawa instructs. Izuku picks up the ball and sighs, wondering if he had to throw it without his quirk. Do I throw it without my quirk? Izuku asks. That would mean he's quirkless. Sensei, wasn't this supposed to test our quirks? Ida interjects. Aizawa sighs. If you think you can do it, throw with your quirk, he says. Izuku's eyes light up. Thank you, Sensei, he exclaims, turning to face the playground. He feels the weight of the softball in his hand, pulls his arm back, and throws the ball. Just before it leaves his hand, it suddenly vanishes. Where'd the ball go? Uraraka asks. It's 384,400 kilometers away, Aizawa says, showing the other students the score. I was thinking of the moon when I threw it, Izuku confesses, feeling embarrassed. Oi, Deku. Izuku turns around to see Bakugo standing with his hands shoved in his pockets. Kaken, he says happily. He wants to hug him but knows Bakugo might not appreciate it. How'd you get that quirk? Weren't you quirkless? Bakugo asks. You're calmer than I thought you'd be, Kaken. Izuku replies cheerfully. I don't remember. What do you mean you don't remember? Bakugo says, his hands crackling with small explosions. I cannot remember. Isn't that enough of an explanation? Izuku asks, confused. A thought suddenly strikes him, and he turns away from Bakugo. Uraraka-san, my ball went to the moon. Izuku hops over to Uraraka, leaving Bakugo fuming. How do you know that, Midoriya-kun? She asks. Because. I was thinking of the moon when I threw it, Izuku says. Sensei, is there a way to find out if he is right? Aizawa fiddles with the computer pad for a few moments before sighing. There's a small camera in the ball. He turns the board around to reveal the image from the ball. The entire class watches as the ball floats near the moon, spinning to show Earth. Wow, that's amazing! Kirishima exclaims, grinning widely. Okay, the test is finished now. Here are the results, Aizawa announces, displaying the scores on a board. Everyone scans for their names. Oh, I'm last, Izuku says, his voice tinged with disappointment. Sensei, you didn't let Izuku use his quirk until the end when he accidentally activated it. You can't just kick him out. Uraraka pleads, hoping their teacher will consider her words. The part about the explosion was, lie or not, I can't expel Midoriya due to his circumstances, Aizawa states. But I'm not being kicked out. Sensei, you'll help me learn to control my quirk, right? Izuku asks eagerly. Aizawa nods, and Izuku beams with joy. That's great because sometimes I find myself in some tricky situations. In tricky situations? Ida inquires, his curiosity piqued. What's your quirk, Midoriya-kun? It's called glitch. Izuku exclaims, spinning around to face Ida. Glitch? The next day, while waiting for the teacher, Izuku looked out the window, humming to himself. He could feel Bakugo's gaze on him and turned to meet his eyes. What's wrong, Kaken? He asked. Do you really remember nothing? Bakugo replied, his tone serious. Izuku nodded and smiled. If you don't remember, how come you're completely different from when we were little? Bakugo pressed. I don't know, Izuku hummed. And you have a quirk now, it's clear you didn't have one before because you can't control it. Bakugo continued. Yeah, I'm not quirkless anymore, but I don't know how it happened. Maybe my quirk manifested during the time I can't remember. Izuku said cheerfully. Bakugo looked into Izuku's eyes and sighed. How can you say that so happily? He asked. Because I'm not normal, Kaken. I have a year of my memory missing, but I also spent another year in a hospital, Izuku reminded him, recalling that they hadn't seen each other since he disappeared 2 years ago. Hey, Midoriya-kun, I saw that you went missing 2 years ago. What happened? Kaminari asked. I was kidnapped. Izuku announced with a smile, looking at his classmates. Oh, okay, Kaminari said, a bit taken aback by Izuku's upbeat attitude. Hey, Deku, you're scaring Kaminari, Bakugo said with a small smirk. My name is Kaminari, he corrected. Who cares? Bakugo replied dismissively. Izuku laughed at Bakugo. You're just as foul-mouthed as you used to be, so Aunt Mitsuki hasn't fixed that about you. Back off, Deku. Bakugo yelled. Isn't that an insult? Uraraka asked. Yeah, it means useless. It's because I was quirkless, Izuku explained. Just before anyone could respond, a booming voice echoed through the room. I am coming through the door like a normal person. The door swung open, and All Might walked into the classroom. It's All Might, everyone exclaimed excitedly, but Izuku felt a strange sense of apprehension about the large, muscular man. I want you all to put on your hero costumes and meet me at City Block A. All of your costumes should be there, All Might announced. The students quickly gathered their costumes and headed to the designated location. Midoriya-kun, where's your hero costume? Ida asked. This is it, Izuku replied, wearing black jeans, a green blouse, and a black vest. You look like a villain, Bakugo remarked. Bakugo, how can you say that about a fellow classmate's outfit? Ida scolded. I know I might trick them. Izuku said, unfazed by Bakugo's comment. Is everyone here? Great, let's start. We're going to have a battle lesson. You will be split into pairs. One team will be the villain team and the other will be the hero team. We'll draw lots for the pairings, All Might explained. Midoriya-kun, we're together, Uraraka said. Yay! Izuku exclaimed, throwing his arms up. Uraraka jumped up and gave him high fives, and Izuku grinned in response. Uraraka-san, just call me Deku, okay? He said. Okay then, Deku-kun, Uraraka replied happily. The lots were drawn, and Izuku and Uraraka ended up against Ida and Bakugo, with Bakugo's team designated as the villains. Izuku felt a twinge of disappointment. He wanted to try being a villain. He glanced at All Might and his smile faded. Is something wrong, Deku-kun? Uraraka asked. Izuku instantly smiles again as he turns back to Uraraka. Nothing is wrong, he says. Young Bakugo and young Midoriya's teams will go first. Villains, you have 5 minutes to set up. You must protect the nuke from the heroes, and the heroes must take the nuke by touching it or capturing the villains. All Might reminds the students of the exercise rules. Bakugo and Ida head into the building to prepare. Do you want to make a plan, Deku-kun? Uraraka asks. Yes, Izuku replies. They begin to strategize. After 5 minutes, All Might announces that the heroes can enter. The rest of the class and All Might are in a viewing room to watch how both teams handle the exercise. Izuku and Uraraka sneak into the building, excitement coursing through Izuku's veins. He knows Bakugo will come after him, so Uraraka is to head off to find the nuke and Ida. Suddenly, Bakugo appears around a corner, heading straight for Izuku, just as he predicted. Uraraka and Izuku split up, and Bakugo follows Izuku. Bakugo blasts the wall near Izuku, causing him to let out a small giggle. "Shut up and fight me, you nerd!" Bakugo yells as Izuku dodges another explosive punch. At one point, Bakugo tries to grab Izuku. As his open palm reaches for him, a sudden headache strikes Izuku, and a strange memory flashes in his mind. It's mostly dark, but he can make out an open hand reaching for him. Fear rises in Izuku's chest. He squeezes his eyes shut and feels the familiar tingle that happens when he glitches. What the? Izuku opens his eyes and finds himself in a completely different room. Where did you go, nerd? Deku. The fact that he can still hear Bakugo means he's still in the same building. Izuku takes a shaky breath, unsure of what that fragmented memory meant, and he honestly doesn't want to know. He looks around the room and finds the door, but before he can move, the wall next to him explodes, and Bakugo smashes through. Bakugo grabs Izuku's shirt and pins him to the floor. "What was that, Deku?" he yells. Izuku smiles broadly. "My quirk," he says happily before, glitching away from Bakugo's grip. Bakugo looks up at Izuku, who is still smiling. Anger flares in Bakugo's chest. "You're treating this like a game," he says. "What? No, I'm not treating it like a game." Izuku replies, stifling a giggle. "Shut up and fight me, Deku." Bakugo yells, charging toward Izuku, his hands sparking with mini explosions. Izuku hops out of the way of Bakugo's charge. "You're the one asking questions," he says. Izuku runs out of the small room he had glitched to and back to the more open area they had been in before. Bakugo follows closely behind. At that moment, Uraraka's voice comes through the earpiece Izuku has in his ear. "Deku-kun, I've located the bomb, and Ida is guarding it," she says. "Great, do what you can, and I'll find a way to get Kaken," Izuku responds. "Okay," Uraraka replies. Izuku spins toward Bakugo and grins when he hears the comms cut. They end up in a large room, and Bakugo smirks, believing Izuku is trapped. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. "Let's see what you can do with this," Bakugo says, holding up his arm and hooking his finger around a small pin in the side of his gauntlet. "This traps my sweat. The more sweat it has, the bigger the explosion." Izuku's grin widens even more as Bakugo explains. Suddenly, All Might's voice sounds out. "Young Bakugo, if you use that, you'll seriously hurt him. Only if it hits." Bakugo pulls the pin, and Izuku watches as the inside starts to glow. It all happens in an instant, and no one knows what has occurred. The explosion goes off, shaking the entire building. This catches both Uraraka and Ida off guard, but Uraraka quickly recovers and manages to grab the bomb. When the dust and smoke clear, everyone can see that Bakugo has been pinned, his wrist wrapped in white tape. "Got you!" Izuku chimes. "Ugh!" Bakugo squirms under Izuku's weight. "Get off me, Deku!" Izuku leans closer to Bakugo's ear. "That was fun. It was thrilling to have the explosion coming toward me." Izuku hops off Bakugo and does a light trot until he is a few feet away. "What is wrong with you, Deku? You were never like this." Bakugo yells, ripping the white tape from his wrist. "Well, I can't remember, but a year with villains won't be good for anyone's sanity, whether they remember or not." Izuku says cheerfully. "How did you avoid that blast?" Bakugo demands, furious that they lost the test and wanting to know what just happened. "I glitched away from the blast," Izuku explains. "It's simple if you avoid it." "You can't just avoid a blast that big, Deku," Bakugo argues. When I glitch, it's like nothing can touch me. That's how I can move through walls, but I can't control it unless I focus really hard, Izuku says, making his way to the door of the room where Bakugo stands, fuming. Let's go! Izuku, Bakugo, Uraraka, and Ida head to the display room to hear their results. The hero team wins. All Might announces. He asks about what happened, and one of the smart students answers. Izuku doesn't take the time to learn everyone's names, so he isn't sure who she is. All Might sends the next team to do their test. Izuku notices him walking over to him and Bakugo. All Might lifts his hands to place them on both boys' shoulders, but Izuku moves away from All Might's hand. All Might, surprised, quickly recovers and congratulates them on a job well done. Izuku can feel Bakugo's questioning gaze on him as All Might leaves. What happened there? You used to admire All Might and now you're avoiding him? Bakugo says, crossing his arms. Izuku simply responds with a small smile. We're going outside of school today, Aizawa announces. Get ready and meet me at the bus, he said. As Class 1A boarded the bus, Ida attempted to organize everyone, but the bus layout was not as he had envisioned, and his plan quickly fell apart. Izuku was the last to hop on and happily took a seat next to Bakugo. Man, you're brave to sit next to Bakugo, Kirishima remarked cheerfully. Kaken wouldn't do anything to me, not too much anyway, Izuku replied with a smile. Says who, nerd? Bakugo retorted, letting small explosions pop off his palm near Izuku's face. Annoyed, Bakugo turned away from Izuku's smiling face and stared out the window. The bus ride was lively, with everyone chatting about various topics, mostly revolving around Bakugo's notorious temper. He's always been like that, Izuku said with a light giggle. You're always so cheerful, Izuku, Tsuyu observed. I know, some people find it a bit strange, Izuku admitted. It is quite unusual to see someone so happy all the time, Jiro added. Really, I don't think it is. If someone is happy, why not share that happiness? Izuku responded. Why are you so happy then, Deku? Uraraka asked. It's because I'm here at you. Izuku exclaimed. Why is that so special? The nerd has always wanted to be a hero, Bakugo interjected. Really? Kirishima asked, intrigued. Yep, but it felt impossible for me, Izuku confessed. Why is that? I was quirkless when I was younger, Izuku explained. Before anyone could inquire further, Aizawa stood up, instructing them to get off the bus as they had arrived. The class entered the building, where they were greeted by another hero. It's the space hero, 13. Uraraka said excitedly. 13 specializes in rescues from disasters. 13 acknowledged Aizawa before addressing the students, acknowledging Uraraka's introduction. That's right. Today, you will learn how to use your quirks for rescue operations. In Eraserhead's classes, you learn your strengths and weaknesses, and in All Might's class, you learn the dangers of using your quirks. Now, it's time to show you how your quirks can be used for good, 13 explained. Suddenly, a purple mist resembling a portal appeared in the area at USJ, and a group of people emerged from it. Is it starting? Are we facing fake villains? Kirishima asked. Those are real villains. 13, get the students out of here, Aizawa announced before rushing into the crowd of villains. 13 attempted to evacuate the students, but the portal villain appeared to block their escape. It seems we're missing someone. All Might was supposed to be here today, he said. 13 tried to absorb the portal with her quirk, but Kirishima and Bakugo jumped out to confront the villain before she could act. Unfortunately, their attack had little effect. Class 1A found themselves scattered around USJ. Izuku opened his eyes to find himself falling toward water. He braced for impact but felt his quirk activate. Someone landed beside him. Midoriya, are you okay? Izuku opened his eyes to see Tsuyu and Mineta looking at him. He glanced down to find himself partially embedded in the ground. Izuku let out a nervous laugh. I'm still learning to control my quirk. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt, he assured them. Do you need help getting out? Tsuyu asked. Izuku closed his eyes and activated his quirk. When he opened them again, he was standing in front of Tsuyu. Nope, he said cheerfully, flashing her a smile. Tsuyu looked out at the water. We need to find a way back to 13. Izuku observed the villains in the water. They weren't approaching the boat or trying to attack. It looks like they're waiting for us to make a move. That means they don't know what our quirks are, so we might be able to devise a plan, Izuku suggested. Are you insane? If we try to do something, we'll be in trouble. Mineta exclaimed. Izuku turned to the small boy. They will eventually come for us if we don't act, so either way, we might be in danger, Izuku replied. Midoriya's right. We need to do something, and since it seems they don't know our quirks, we have an advantage, Tsuyu said. Then let's come up with a plan, Izuku said. They huddled together to brainstorm. Midoriya-kun, you can glitch to different places, right? Why can't you just get us out of here? Mineta asked. Mineta-kun, we don't know if Midoriya-kun's quirk works on others, Tsuyu pointed out. It does, and yes, I can glitch anywhere I've been before, but I don't have much control over it. I only got this quirk 2 years ago, which is why I sometimes end up in walls, Izuku explained. What? How could you have only gotten your quirk 2 years ago? Mineta asked, shocked. Izuku looked him in the eye. I can't remember, he said, his voice devoid of emotion, which silenced Mineta. Midoriya-kun, can you glitch us as far away from the villains as possible? After that, I can swim us out of the area, Tsuyu suggested. I can try. Glitching myself, I could go further, but with 2 others, my distance will be limited, especially if it's beyond what I can control, Izuku replied. Then let's give it a shot, Tsuyu said. I'm fine if I end up in a wall, but I don't know about you two, Izuku warned. Then avoid the walls. With what you said, we'll only end up in water, which makes it easier because I can swim us away faster than usual due to my quirk, Tsuyu explained. Then let's go with that plan, Izuku said cheerfully. He heard Mineta mutter something about how quickly his mood changed, but he chose to ignore it. He was sure the teachers knew about him, but whether they had informed the students was another matter. Izuku extended his hands for the two to grab. Tsuyu immediately took his hand, while Mineta hesitated before reluctantly placing his hand in Izuku's, muttering about their safety. Okay, your body will feel a bit strange when we start glitching. That's normal, he said. Mineta and Tsuyu nodded, and Izuku grinned. Let's go. He activated his quirk, feeling the familiar tingling sensation. The next thing he saw was water. Tsuyu, still holding his hand, began to swim toward the shore. Mineta, in a moment of panic, pulled out a handful of his hair and threw it, causing the villains to hesitate in their pursuit as they got entangled with one another. They eventually made it to land. Izuku looked around to see where they had ended up. He then saw Aizawa get slammed into the ground by a strange creature. Without thinking, Izuku felt a tingle in his body. The next thing he knew, he was right next to his teacher. The thrill of excitement that had been building in his chest since the villains appeared grew larger now that he was closer to everything. He grabbed his teacher's arm. Only sensei, Izuku said, concentrating on trying to glitch just himself and Aizawa, avoiding the giant monster since he was touching Aizawa. Midoriya? I'm sorry, it just happened, Izuku replied, immediately knowing Aizawa would tell him he shouldn't have gotten involved. You have a very good student here, Izuku heard. He looked up to see a young man covered in hands with pale blue hair and a misty figure standing next to him. Suddenly, his head throbbed in pain. He needed to get away from those people. He closed his eyes and activated his quirk. He heard shocked gasps as the tingling in his body started to fade. When he opened his eyes, he saw some of his classmates and 13. 13 immediately checked on Aizawa. Nomu, don't let them ruin this. Since All Might is not here, maybe hurting some of his students will make him arrive faster and kill time. Izuku's head was pounding, and even in his injured state, Aizawa could see something was wrong with Izuku. Midoriya, is something wrong? Are you hurt? He asked. My head is pounding, Izuku confessed. For some reason he couldn't look away from the 2 villains in the middle. They seemed to be the leaders, but that wasn't what drew his attention. Nomu, the young villain's voice caught everyone's attention. That boy there, he pointed to Izuku and smiled. Attack! When Izuku heard the command, something clicked. A small smile appeared on his lips. Aizawa sensed something had changed and was not expecting anything good to happen. Izuku Midoriya, you better stay right here. Just as Aizawa ordered Midoriya not to move, he glitched away. He appeared in front of the Nomu. What is Midoriya doing? Uraraka asked. 13, I think he's snapped. Are you coming closer to your demise to save your friends? No, I was just so excited I wanted it to start as soon as possible. Izuku said happily. The Nomu immediately tried to hit Izuku, but its hand phased right through him, and Izuku's grin widened. The Nomu continued to attempt to hit or grab Izuku, but he glitched away or made it so the Nomu would pass through him. It seems he has more control over his quirk in this state, 13 observed. That doesn't matter. Principal Nizu says it's dangerous when he is like this, Aizawa replied. Sensei, what's happened to Deku? Uraraka asked. I'll explain when we're all safe, Aizawa said. Ah, this is annoying. Nomu, finish him already. Izuku started to giggle a little. His entire body was tingling. He couldn't tell if it was from his quirk this time or the excitement and thrill of everything happening. At one point, the Nomu managed to grab Izuku and pin him to the ground. The young man with hands approached the giggling boy. I feel like I'll enjoy hurting you, he said. Reaching down and grabbing Izuku's arm, causing a strange sensation to spread through it. Izuku let out a mix of yells and giggles. Ah, that hurts, he said. The villain let him go, and the sensation stopped. You are one insane kid, yet you're trying to be a hero, he remarked. Hee, what can I say? I'm different. At that moment, a familiar voice echoed through the area. There is nothing to fear, why? Because I am here. Everyone looked to the door to see All Might, but his signature smile was missing. All Might, you're finally here, Shigaraki said. All Might saw that Izuku was being held down by the Nomu but was smiling. He had been informed of the boy's predicament and knew he needed to help him before he got hurt. But before All Might could do anything, Izuku glitched away from the Nomu's grasp. He appeared a few feet in front of Shigaraki, looking at the strange mark on his arm and grinning even more. You've got a cool quirk, he said. Shigaraki stared at Izuku as he continued, but you have to touch something for it to work. Nomu, get him. Shigaraki ordered. The Nomu lunged at Izuku but went right through him. All Might suddenly appeared, trying to get Izuku to safety, but he couldn't touch him either. What? I'm a glitch. You cannot touch glitches, Izuku said. Suddenly, the tingling of his quirk vanished. Izuku looked up the stairs to see Aizawa staring at him. That's annoying. All Might grabbed Izuku again and took him up to the top of the staircase, where the rest of the students had gathered. Bakugo immediately grabbed Izuku to keep him from moving. Let me go! Izuku yelled, struggling to break free. Stop touching me! Everyone in Class 1A was shocked at the sudden change in their friend's attitude. It was so different from the friendly, smiling boy they knew. 13. Knock him out, Aizawa instructed. Izuku glared at the man before him, feeling his quirk sealed so he couldn't escape. Leave me alone! Izuku yelled, thrashing about. Even Bakugo was having trouble holding him still. 13 approached Izuku with an object resembling an EpiPen. She pressed it into Izuku's shoulder. He giggled at the sensation before the drag began to take effect. Izuku started to feel drowsy, as if he were floating. What did you do to me? He asked as his movements slowed. He could hear the battle between All Might and the Nomu while being restrained by his friends. It'll make you go to sleep for a while, don't worry too much, Izuku heard 13 say gently. Eventually, he fell limp in Bakugo's grasp, asleep. Suddenly, there was a loud crash, and everyone looked to see that All Might had defeated the Nomu. They watched helplessly as Shigaraki escaped. More heroes appeared, and anyone who was injured received treatment. Recovery Girl looked at Izuku but refrained from using her quirk, knowing it would interfere with the medication. We should get him back to the school and put him in that room Principal Nizu had prepared for him, she ordered. Some heroes carefully carried Izuku away toward the school. Bakugo overheard Recovery Girl mutter something about informing Izuku's mother. I can tell his mother, he said, startling the elderly woman. Really, dear? Are you sure? She asked. Yeah, I've known Aunt Inko since I was a kid, he replied. All right then, are you hurt anywhere? She asked kindly. Of course not. People like them could never hurt me, Bakugo said as he stomped off. All he could think about was how much Izuku had changed. Sensei better explain this, he grumbled. The next day at school, the students of Class 1A wondered if they would have a substitute teacher due to Aizawa's injuries, and Izuku had not yet arrived in class. They all turned to the door as it opened to reveal Aizawa, looking exhausted and bandaged. Should you really be teaching today, Aizawa-sensei? Uraraka asked. Where is Deku? Bakugo demanded immediately. I can't leave you guys with another teacher, and I need to explain Midoriya's situation before Bakugo explodes. Aizawa sighed. As you all should know, Midoriya was kidnapped 2 years ago by villains. We don't know who, as he has no memories of the entire year he was missing. He was found in an alley, injured and covered in cuts. After being taken to the hospital and questioned, he was returned to his mother. However, there was an incident. An incident? What happened? Uraraka asked. Let me explain. Midoriya suddenly became violent, mostly towards himself but also towards others. His mother was terrified, fearing he might harm himself. The police and heroes had to restrain him and sedate him. I was there to cancel his quirk. Izuku then spent a year at a hospital that treats mental health patients. It was determined that due to the year he was missing, which he cannot remember, he experienced some psychological trauma. Trauma? So he's? Mineta began, shocked. The rest of the class shot him glares for interrupting. You could say that. After treatment, Midoriya returned to a somewhat normal state, but it seems yesterday's incident triggered some memories we hoped would stay buried. He mentioned having a headache when the villains appeared, which might have jogged his memory. What does that mean? Bakugo asked, frustration evident in his voice. It means he might start recalling what happened during the year he was missing, and we don't know what kind of impact that will have on his already fragile mind, Aizawa explained. The room fell silent as they processed his words. Is Aunt Inko able to see him? Bakugo asked, breaking the silence. Yes, but it has to be from a distance or with him restrained. He's a bit unpredictable at the moment, Aizawa replied. Can we see Deku, Aizawa-sensei? Uraraka asked. From a distance. Only those permitted by Mrs. Midoriya can approach him more closely, he said. Has Aunt Inko been informed of all this? Bakugo pressed. She has. Mrs. Midoriya will be coming after school to see Midoriya. You can ask her then if you are allowed to visit him as well, Aizawa said. Now, let's get class started. Putting the incident with Midoriya aside, you will need to prepare for the sports festival, Aizawa announced. Should that really be happening? We were just attacked by villains, Yaoyorozu questioned. It's to show the public that UA will not be affected by the incident. It's to demonstrate our strength, Aizawa explained. He settled into his sleeping bag, allowing the students of Class 1A to discuss the festival among themselves. With the festival just 2 days away, they all agreed they needed to train hard. On the day of the festival, everyone was still preparing, trying to calm their nerves to perform their best. That's when they finally saw him. Deku! Uraraka exclaimed happily as she spotted the familiar green-haired boy approaching. Hello, he greeted cheerfully. Trailing behind him was Aizawa, wearing his usual tired expression. Izuku started to head toward his class but was stopped by Aizawa. Remember, Midoriya, you're being monitored, so behave, he said. Izuku grinned at Aizawa and gave him a mock salute. I understand, sensei, he replied before running off to join the others. Are you okay, Deku? Bakugo asked, concern creeping into his voice. Izuku nodded, offering Bakugo a small smile. I'm fine, he assured. Hey, Midoriya, were you able to train for the festival? Kirishima asked. Nope, but I don't want to win or anything, I just want to have some fun. Izuku replied. Stupid Deku, if you do poorly, you might lose your spot in Class 1A, Bakugo warned. Really? Then I guess I'll have to do my best, Izuku said, glancing at Aizawa with a smile. Without breaking the rules. What rules? Uraraka asked. Because of what happened, I have a few restrictions, but it's okay. Izuku announced. Soon, The festival began, and midnight appeared to announce the first game. The first challenge is, she spun the giant wheel, waiting for it to land on the challenge. It was prearranged, but this added an element of suspense. An obstacle race. The race will use the track around the stadium and will be filled with obstacles to navigate. Let's get this challenge started. Students, line up for the race. Present mic called from the announcer's booth. All students, whether in the hero course or general studies, lined up at the starting area. Be careful, the students from general studies will be after our spots in the hero course. They came to see what we were like yesterday, Uraraka warned. Don't worry, I'll be fine, Izuku reassured her. But you can barely control your quirk, she said, a hint of worry in her voice. I seem to control my quirk better in tense situations. I'll be fine. Worry about yourself, Izuku said with a grin. When the starting gun fired, all the students took off toward the small tunnel, causing a jam of bodies. Almost immediately, Todoroki froze the ground, leaving more than half of the students trapped, their feet encased in ice in a cramped area. Izuku looked at the ice covering his feet and grinned. This is going to be so much fun, he exclaimed, lifting his feet as they glitched out of the ice. He passed through all of the trapped students like a ghost, causing many of them to shiver. Izuku then started to run toward the next obstacle. When he arrived, Todoroki froze the giant robots. Robots, he exclaimed, happily running over to them. The robots, having been frozen at an angle, broke and fell down. Izuku watched as the robots toppled toward him, feeling the familiar tingle of his quirk. The next moment, he opened his eyes to find himself just a few centimeters away from the falling robots. That was close, he hummed. He climbed over the robots as two students burst out from underneath. Izuku dismissed them and continued on with the race. It was so much fun, but it wasn't much of a challenge. He soon got closer to Bakugo and Todoroki. He knew they were battling for first place and thought it would be amusing to see their reactions if he came in first. But if Bakugo won, he wanted to see his expression. He had missed Bakugo when he was in the hospital last year and couldn't wait to see him again now that they were finally in the same class. He didn't want to make him mad, he wanted to be friends this time, not enemies. He reached the minefield, clearly seeing where all of the mines were, and happily skipped through. Many of the students behind him were caught in explosions. After the minefield, there was a full-on dash to the finish line. Izuku skipped, glitching closer to the finish line. He ended up in third place, behind Bakugo, who was fuming with anger that Todoroki had won instead of him. Todoroki smirked at Bakugo's reaction, but Izuku just happily skipped over to Bakugo. Good job, Kaken. You beat me, he said. Shut up, you Deku. Bakugo yelled, letting off a few small explosions in frustration. Izuku opened his mouth to say something again, but Uraraka stopped him. Do you want Bakugo to explode at you? She asked in a hushed tone so Bakugo couldn't hear. Kaken won't do that, he wants to be a hero after all, Izuku replied cheerfully. Uraraka looked at him in disbelief. Everyone knew what Bakugo was like, but Izuku seemed to dismiss his explosive nature. Deku-kun, did you know Bakugo before coming to UA? Ida asked, joining their conversation. Yep, we went to the same middle school. We've known each other since we were kids because my mom and Aunt Mitsuki are friends, Izuku explained. That makes sense. Was Bakugo always like this? Kirishima asked. Yep, he's just like Aunt Mitsuki, Izuku said. Shut up, Deku. Bakugo yelled again. Kaken, how is Aunt Mitsuki? I haven't seen her. Izuku asked, hopping over to Bakugo as small streams of smoke rose from his hands. She's fine, okay? Just shut up. I'm going to win this festival. Bakugo stormed away, leaving Izuku standing there with a smile on his lips. Izuku turned to his friends. I've always wanted to be good friends with Kaken, he said. I don't think he thinks of you as a friend, Deku, Uraraka replied. I don't care, Izuku said, smiling broadly. Now for the second game. Midnight announced. After the horse race, Bakugo was still in second place, which made him even more frustrated. Every time Izuku tried to approach him, Bakugo exploded with anger, and the rest of the class grew worried about Izuku's nonchalant reactions to Bakugo yelling at him to go away. Izuku always bounced back over to Bakugo without fear. Hey Dekuen, come over here. Uraraka called out, trying to get Izuku away from Bakugo, who looked like he was about to blow up. The last excitement for today is the 1v1 battles. 2 students will be paired, and they will fight until one concedes or is unable to continue, Midnight announced. Let's take a break while the arena is being built. Stay tuned, listeners, and expect a good show soon. Present Mike yelled through the speakers. Let's go get ready, Dekuen, Uraraka said, turning to her green-haired friend. Okay. Midoriya. Izuku turned toward their tired teacher's voice. You need to come. With me. Why? Izuku asked, feeling sad that he couldn't go with his friends. We need to go over some rules, Aizawa said. Izuku looked back at Uraraka and then at Aizawa before following his tired teacher. Aizawa-sensei, why does Izuku have rules to go over? Uraraka asked. Because when he's worked up, he cannot control his power, Aizawa replied simply, leaving no room for further questions as he started to walk away with Izuku closely behind him. If you can promise that what happened before won't happen here, then there will be no rules for you. Izuku remained silent. He couldn't make that promise, even he didn't understand why he had acted that way during the villain attack. Since that incident, he had been plagued by strange dreams, unsure if they were lost memories or just nightmares. Okay, Aizawa asked. Izuku nodded and sighed. Okay, he replied. Then you can go back to class, Aizawa said. Izuku stood up quietly and left the room in search of his classmates. On his way, he ran into Endeavor. He noticed Todoroki behind Endeavor, but it seemed like Endeavor hadn't noticed him yet. Move, Endeavor commanded. Izuku stared at him, feeling his heart race and a swell of fear rising within him. His body refused to budge. He clutched the bottom of his shirt tightly. Endeavor's eyes narrowed at the young boy in front of him. Move, he ordered more sternly. Todoroki could see that Izuku was frightened, but he didn't understand why. All Endeavor was doing was asking him to move, yet Izuku remained frozen. After the second command, Todoroki noticed parts of Izuku's body flickering as if he were glitching, and his eyes glistened with unshed tears. I will only say it once more, move, Endeavor said. Izuku took a step back, and Todoroki decided he had seen enough. Midoriya, do you know where the class is? He asked. Endeavor looked back to see his son. Todoroki walked past Endeavor. Shoto, he said. Todoroki shot a glare at his father. Follow me, Midoriya. I'll take you to where our class is, Todoroki said. Izuku quietly nodded and began to follow Todoroki, moving further away as he passed Endeavor. Once he felt Endeavor's gaze lift from him, Izuku sighed. Are you okay? Todoroki asked. Yep, I'm fine. Thank you, Todoroki-kun. Izuku replied, returning to his usual cheerful demeanor. Todoroki turned toward the door leading to their class. You helped me get away from him too, so don't worry about it. But what happened? You're usually really confident, Todoroki said. I don't know, people with strong presences scare me, Izuku admitted. You'll get used to it. Being a hero will be tough if you don't, Todoroki said. Izuku looked over at him and smiled. Are you okay with him? Izuku asked, catching Todoroki off guard. Fine. It doesn't seem that way. You have a dual quirk but only use one part of it. Endeavor is the reason why, right? Izuku inquired. Todoroki was taken aback by Izuku's bubbly tone. I won't let him control me. I want to win without using his quirk, Todoroki stated, clenching his left fist. Ah, so your ice comes from your mother. That doesn't make sense, Izuku said, crossing his arms in thought. What? Todoroki asked. It's not just your father's or mother's quirk, it's your own. Sure, it's inherited, but your quirk is fire and ice, not just fire. It's different from Endeavor's and your mother's, it's uniquely yours. At least you know where your quirk comes from and can control it, Izuku explained. What do you mean? Todoroki asked. I was quirkless until 2 years ago. I don't know where my quirk came from because it doesn't reflect my mom's or dad's, Izuku shared, still pondering. I want to win without using my fire, Todoroki said. Okay, but everyone else is using 100% of their quirk while you're holding back, quirk-wise at least. Thank you for showing me the way here, Izuku said, opening the door and waving to Todoroki. When Izuku entered the seating area, Uraraka immediately stood up. Deku! Uraraka rushed over to Izuku. Are you still allowed to participate? Yep, I can still participate, Izuku replied happily. Okay listeners, the stage is set. It's time for the first battle. Present mic announced. The first contenders are Izuku Midoriya and Hitoshi Shinso. Can the contestants go to their waiting room for the battle? Izuku looked at Uraraka, who smiled back at him. Who knew I'd go first? Izuku exclaimed joyfully. Midoriya, be careful with that guy. His quirk did something to me during the cavalry battle, Ojiro warned. Okay, thank you, Izuku said. I think it works when you respond to him. Understood, I'll be off then. Izuku pulled the door open and skipped his way to where he needed to be. Let's get this battle underway. Present Mike yelled. On one side, we have Hitoshi Shinso from the General Education course and Izuku Midoriya from the Hero course. Izuku jumped onto the cement platform and watched as his opponent approached. Are you two ready? Midnight asked. Yep. Izuku replied. Yeah, Hitoshi said, sounding almost disinterested. Well then begin. Midnight jumped back to signal the start of the fight. Izuku waited for Hitoshi to make the first move, watching him with a small smile. What, are you too scared of my quirk to attack first? Hitoshi taunted. Izuku's smile widened as Hitoshi spoke. Your classmates were very helpful in getting me through the second round, Hitoshi added. Izuku frowned at this. He had relied on his classmates to progress, potentially harming them in the process. In a flash, Izuku glitched over to Hitoshi, startling him. Izuku's expression remained cheerful, but his eyes glimmered with determination. You used my classmates, so you're not going any further, he said, his voice flat and sending a chill down Hitoshi's spine. Izuku glitched Hitoshi to the very edge of the battle platform. He walked over to Hitoshi, who quickly stood up to fight back. Knowing that his quirk was primarily teleportation, Hitoshi threw a punch at Izuku, but his fist passed right through him. A small grin appeared on Izuku's lips. Wasn't your quirk teleporting? Hitoshi asked, not expecting an answer, as it seemed Izuku understood his own abilities well. My quirk isn't teleporting, it's called glitch, Izuku replied. He then spun around and happily skipped back to his class after Midnight announced him as the winner of the first round. The rest of the battles unfolded as Izuku had anticipated. The first battle after his was Todoroki and Sero, and as expected, Todoroki ended the match. Before it even began, he was sticking true to his claim to win the tournament without relying on his father's quirk. Kaminari lost his battle against his opponent after forgetting that plants do not conduct electricity. Ida's battle turned into a showcase for Mei Hatsum. After displaying all of her inventions, she stepped out of the arena herself, allowing Ida to win. Ashido defeated Aoyama by exploiting his weaknesses, while Tokoyami triumphed over Yaoyorozu, who tended to overthink her strategies. Izuku watched each battle with excitement, already knowing the outcomes due to his understanding of his classmates' strengths and weaknesses. His deep analysis of quirks had paid off in predicting who would win or lose. Kirishima's match took longer than expected because his opponent had a nearly identical quirk, resulting in a tie. Izuku eagerly anticipated Uraraka's battle against Bakugo, curious to see what strategy she would employ to challenge the hot-headed boy. When the battle began, Izuku noticed that Bakugo was respecting his opponent, using his full strength while acknowledging her capabilities. It frustrated Izuku when the audience and pro-heroes began to label Bakugo a villain for not going easy on Uraraka. Ultimately, Uraraka's plan fell short, and she lost. Izuku rushed to check on her, knowing she had given it her all. I knew Kaken was strong, but to clear all that rubble in one move. Izuku opened the waiting room door to find Uraraka sitting in a chair. She looked up as the door opened. Deku-kun, why are you here? She asked. To see how you are, Izuku replied cheerfully. Uraraka offered him a bright smile, but he had seen enough fake smiles to recognize the difference. I'm okay. I knew I wouldn't have much of a chance. Bakugo is amazing, he has such good control over his quirk, she said. You're not okay, but Kaken wasn't holding back. He acknowledged your strength, which means he thinks you're great too. To be noticed by Kaken, you must be good, Izuku encouraged. Uraraka laughed softly. Are you trying to cheer me up, Deku-kun? She asked. Is that not obvious? Am I doing it wrong? Izuku asked, a bit worried he might be making her feel worse. No, it's working. Thank you, Deku-kun. Can you give me some time alone? I want to call my parents, Uraraka requested. Of course. After the arm wrestle between Kirishima and the metal student from Class 1B and the break, I'll be going against Todoroki-kun. I can't wait. Izuku waved happily to Uraraka, who responded with a small wave and a sad smile. Once the arena was repaired and Kirishima's arm wrestle concluded with his victory, the quarter-final rounds began. For the quarter-finals, first round, we have Izuku Midoriya and Shoto Todoroki, Midnight announced, stepping off the stage to allow the two students to start their battle. Izuku anticipated Todoroki's opening move, knowing he wanted to finish quickly, at least somewhat aware of Izuku's abilities. As soon as the battle commenced, the arena was blanketed in ice, reminiscent of Todoroki's match against Zero. Deku-kun! Uraraka shouted. The area filled with a cold mist, obscuring Izuku from view. As the mist cleared, a small giggle echoed. Ah, now it's cold, Izuku said, leaning against the ice that Todoroki had created. He pushed off the ice and pretended to shiver, his smile unwavering. Everyone knew it was okay if Izuku was smiling. They had never seen him without it, leaving them uncertain about what would happen if he stopped. He shared a similar trait with All Might in that regard. If you want to win, Todoroki-kun, you'll have to use your fire. More ice shot toward Izuku, and this time everyone witnessed how he evaded the attack. He didn't dodge. Todoroki's ice passed right through him and shattered on the ground behind him. Izuku skipped over to Todoroki, his grin widening. Todoroki felt a surge of nerves at the sight of that smile. Still beaming, Izuku lifted his fist to punch Todoroki, who quickly conjured ice to cover Izuku's body, obscuring him from view for a moment. Boo! Izuku popped his head through the ice, startling Todoroki and causing Izuku to laugh. He stepped out of the ice, still chuckling. Todoroki noticed that his arms seemed to glitch. You can make things go through you? Todoroki asked, astonished. Yep, just like when something glitches in a video game, Izuku replied. Todoroki attempted to engage in a battle of endurance, knowing Izuku didn't have the same level of control over his quirk as others. As the fight continued, Izuku's smile grew brighter, and his precision improved, leaving Todoroki confused. How was Izuku getting better over time instead of weaker like usual? Todoroki-kun, you should use your fire, you'll freeze if you don't, Izuku said cheerfully, leaning against some of Todoroki's ice. Or, should I force you? A sense of dread filled Todoroki as Izuku's smile began to fade. He knew the teachers would intervene if the battle became too dangerous, but what could Izuku do with his quirk that would necessitate such a response? Suddenly, Izuku appeared in front of Todoroki, grabbing his arm and pinning him to the ground. Chills ran down Todoroki's spine, not from exhaustion but from Izuku's expression, which had turned cold and serious. Izuku released one of Todoroki's arms. If you don't use your fire to get me off, you might get hurt, Izuku said playfully, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Todoroki realized he needed to escape. In an instant, Todoroki's flames erupted, shocking Izuku. As Todoroki reached for him, the sight of his flame-covered hand reminded Izuku of something else. A throbbing pain surged in his head, and he glitched away. Izuku looked up at Todoroki, who was preparing to attack with fire when Aizawa's voice echoed through the stadium. Midnight, stop the battle. Midnight immediately began to release her quirk, and cementosic TED barriers between Izuku and Todoroki. The audience could see that the teachers were more focused on Izuku than Todoroki when it came to halting the battle. A teacher appeared with quirk-nullifying cuffs, which were placed on Izuku before he was taken away on a stretcher, having been incapacitated by Midnight's quirk. Ultimately, Todoroki was declared the victor of the match. Uraraka went to find out what had happened and why the battle had been stopped. They had time before the next battle because all of Todoroki's ice had to be melted and the arena had to be repaired. Aizawa-sensei, why did you tell Midnight-sensei to stop the fight? Uraraka asked, seeing Aizawa in a chair next to Izuku's bed. He was about to break one of the rules I set for him. He can become unpredictable at times, and we need to prevent that, which is why I stopped the battle when I did, Aizawa explained. He's quite the problem child. After everything was fixed in the arena, the competition continued with Ida and Shiozaki's battle. It ended quickly, with Ida using his quirk to push Shiozaki out of the arena before she could react. Next was a battle between Tokoyami and Ishido, where Tokoyami emerged victorious due to the strength of Dark Shadow. There wasn't much of a competition. Following that was Bakugo against Kirishima. Bakugo won decisively, using his explosive abilities to overpower Kirishima. After Bakugo's battle, there was a break to prepare for the semifinals. Uraraka and Ida were worried because Izuku hadn't appeared yet, and they were confused about why the previous battle had been interrupted without explanation. Soon, the semifinals began, starting with Ida against Todoroki. The battle was brief. Ida attempted to get closer to Todoroki to push him out of bounds, but Todoroki froze Ida's legs, ending the match in his favor. Next was Bakugo versus Tokoyami. Bakugo discovered that Dark Shadow was vulnerable to bright lights, using his explosions to drive Tokoyami back and win the match. Another break followed to prepare the arena for the grand finale, the final showdown to determine first and second place. Todoroki waited in his room, reflecting on his battle with Midoriya when suddenly the door opened. He looked over to see Bakugo, who seemed just as surprised to find him there. Bakugo glanced at the room number and realized he was in the wrong place. "What are you looking at, half and half?" Bakugo shouted, shoving his hands into his pockets. Todoroki turned away, continuing to ponder why his battle had been cut short. He heard Bakugo scoff and then the sound of his footsteps retreating. Soon, both students were called out for their battle. From the hero course, Todoroki Shoto, and also from the hero course, Bakugo Katsuki. Ready and start. The battle began instantly. Todoroki unleashed a massive ice attack that covered the entire arena, but Bakugo managed to blast through it. He then propelled himself toward Todoroki, evading his grasp midair with an explosion. "Don't underestimate me," Bakugo yelled. "Aren't you going to use your left side? Am I not strong enough? I want an undeniable first place, and I want to be above Deku no matter what." "You're close to Midoriya, aren't you?" Todoroki asked. "Absolutely not. That stupid Deku is not close to me," Bakugo shouted, sending another explosion toward Todoroki. "Do you know why they stopped our battle early? Was it because of his quirk?" Todoroki inquired. "Shut up and fight me, icy hot." Bakugo blasted toward Todoroki again. Todoroki raised his left arm, hearing his father from the stands. "Yes, use your left side." Todoroki grabbed Bakugo's arm, redirecting him. Bakugo backed off and then charged at full speed, preparing one of his powerful attacks. Todoroki began to lift his left arm, feeling the heat around him rise, but he recalled the reason he had hesitated to use it. "It's not your father's or mother's quirk, but your own." "Sorry, Midoriya, I can't, not yet." Todoroki attempted to block Bakugo's attack with ice, but the force sent him crashing into the large mound of ice he had created earlier, knocking him out. Bakugo's easy victory fueled his frustration. After the battle, Bakugo had to be restrained by Midnight, who used her quirk to prevent him from causing further chaos. Izuku woke up just before the award ceremony, noticing the quirk nullification cuffs around his wrists. When the door opened, he saw Aizawa enter. "Sensei, where is the competition at now?" he asked immediately. "The award ceremony is about to start. We need to talk," Aizawa said, sitting down. "But I want to see the award ceremony." "Who won? Was it Bakugo?" Izuku asked excitedly. "Yes, Bakugo beat Todoroki." "I knew it. Bakugo must be happy, unless Todoroki didn't use his fire. Then Bakugo will be really, really angry," Izuku said, deep in thought. "Midoriya, we had to stop your fight. Do you know why?" Aizawa asked. Izuku shook his head. "I didn't break any rules," Izuku replied, crossing his arms playfully. Aizawa replies with a sigh. You are going to. It's not normal for a student to show such intense hostility towards another during a battle, not even Bakugo goes that far. What were you planning to do? I don't know, Izuku responds cheerfully. Aizawa sighs and rubs his eyes, realizing the student is quite the handful and doesn't even realize it. We will need to work on that. Go back to where the class is, Aizawa instructs. Since you should really get some sleep, you look really tired, Izuku says before quickly leaving the room. He finally reaches the stand where his classmates are gathered, and before anyone can say anything, he rushes to the front to see Bakugo in first place, Todoroki in second, and Tokoyami in third. The sight makes Izuku burst into laughter, doubling over as he holds his sides. I knew he'd be angry but not like that. Izuku exclaims, trying to catch his breath. His laughter stops when he hears a familiar voice. He quickly stands up to see All Might. Why is All Might here? He asks. He presented the medals. Are you okay, Izuku? They stopped the battle rather suddenly, and no one explained why. Uraraka asks. I'm fine. Izuku assures her. After the award ceremony, Todoroki searches for Izuku and finally finds him among their classmates. Midoriya-kun, Todoroki calls out to get his attention. Ah, Todoroki-kun. I heard you didn't use your fire during your battle with Bakugo. No wonder he was so angry. You could have won if you had, Izuku says. Todoroki watches Izuku speak, wondering again why the battle was stopped before it truly ended or seemed dangerous. Midoriya-kun, why did the teachers stop our battle? Todoroki asks, as everyone has been curious but Izuku hasn't given them an answer. They hope he will share it with his opponent. Because you would have been in serious trouble, Izuku replies with a smile, startling the whole class. I would have been in trouble? Todoroki asks, confused. Yup, I could have seriously hurt you, Izuku says. A sinking feeling returns to Todoroki's stomach. Izuku's cheerful demeanor seems to hide something deeper, and Todoroki is unsure what that could be. I don't know what I was going to do, but Aizawa-sensei says I was releasing intense hostility towards you, Todoroki-kun. I have an idea. What's it like being so close to All Might? Izuku asks eagerly. Why do you want to know? He's big and has a strong presence, Izuku replies, quieting down a little. Todoroki recalls what Izuku said about feeling nervous around people with strong auras, specifically his father's, and wonders what makes the number one hero any different in Izuku's eyes. It's similar to being next to my father, but I'm not on the defensive like I normally am, Todoroki responds. I see. Should I act differently around him? Izuku ponders how he should behave around the number one hero. Just be yourself, Midoriya-kun. We can't fault you for feeling uneasy around All Might, Todoroki advises. But he is the number one hero. I should trust him, not feel wary, Izuku says, unsure of what to do. It doesn't matter. If you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to act that way. I'm sure All Might has met people like that before, so there's no need for you to change just because of his status. You're right, Todoroki-kun. Thank you. If your father makes you feel the same way, then tell him directly. Izuku says happily. Todoroki can't help but smile at the cheerful boy. OME, you made Todoroki smile. Uraraka exclaims, hugging Izuku's shoulders. The smile on Todoroki's face disappears as soon as someone points it out. He didn't want to make friends, yet here he was, being drawn in by none other than Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya-kun, you mentioned something about intense hostility. Todoroki says. Yeah, I'm not exactly normal. I don't react to some situations the same way, so I can be dangerous to others and myself, Izuku replies cheerfully. I see. The uneasy feeling in Todoroki's stomach returns as he considers how Izuku describes himself, but watching how his classmate interacts with others around him helps that feeling slowly fade. The festival is finally over, and the students can go home to celebrate their hard work with their families. The next day after the festival, the students of 1A face a new challenge. They need to come up with their hero names for their internships. Aizawa explains how the internships will work and how they can choose where to go. Thanks to the sports festival, some students were noticed and invited to a hero's agency. If you have more than one offer, you're free to choose, but if not, you'll still need to pick somewhere for your internship. Midoriya, you'll be interning with me, Aizawa says. Okay. Izuku happily raises his hand in response before going back to doodling on his arm with a red pen. Todoroki observes his strange classmate, trying to figure out what Midoriya is drawing but is too far away to see. Since I'm not great with names, Midnight will be conducting this class, Aizawa announces. Just as he mentions Midnight, the door opens, and she walks in, causing Aizawa to retreat into his sleeping bag behind the pedestal. Time for your hero names. You can change these, but the names students choose for their internships usually stick when they become pros, so choose wisely, you might not get to change them, she announces. White bards are handed out for the students to write their names on. Izuku has no idea what to choose for his name but eagerly anticipates hearing the others' hero names. Aoyama goes first, and Izuku struggles to hold back laughter when Aoyama says a sentence instead of a name. Midnight takes it seriously and corrects it to make it sound more like a hero name, shocking the class. Ashido goes next, and the rest of the students continue at a steady pace until Bakugo stands up to announce his hero name. This time, Izuku finds it even harder to suppress his laughter. You can't use that, maybe change it a bit, Midnight says. Seriously? Bakugo grumbles as he returns to his desk in front of Izuku. He glares at Izuku, who is snickering at him. Midoriya, do you have a name for yourself? Midnight. Izuku quickly grabs his board and hops up to the front of the classroom. This, he says, showing the class the name. Isn't that an insult though? Ida asks. Yup, but I like this name, Izuku replies. Who gave you that nickname? Todoroki asks. Kaken, Izuku says happily. Everyone looks over to Bakugo, who is focusing on his hero name. Bakugo, did you really give Midoriya the nickname Deku? Uraraka asks. Yeah, so what? Bakugo says, looking up at the class. He never said anything against it, and he calls me that silly nickname himself. Yeah, I call you Kaken. Izuku says cheerfully. Okay, who's next? Midnight. After figuring out their hero names, Bakugo didn't end up with a suitable one and went with his name for now. The next day, Aizawa saw his students off at the train station for their internships. Once they were all gone, he turned to see Izuku waiting for him. Aizawa sighed and waved him to follow. He took Izuku to an area in the school with trees, where they met Aizawa's actual intern, Hitoshi Shinso. Ah, you're the one I fought first. Izuku says happily. Sensei, why is he here? Hitoshi asks, unimpressed. We cannot let him go to another hero, so I have been tasked with his internship, but I still have you to teach as well, Aizawa explains. He turns to Izuku, who is drawing in the dirt with a stick he found. Midoriya, I want you to activate your quirk and hold it for as long as possible. Are you sure? Izuku asks, smiling, sending shivers down Hitoshi's spine. The hero student made him nervous and on edge, and he had only been around him for a short while. Why? Is there something wrong with that task? Aizawa asks. My quirk allows me to teleport and phase through things, like a glitch in a video game, and I can use it on others as well. But to have it constantly active, I'll either teleport constantly or fall through the ground. I don't actually know what will happen, Izuku explains. Then have it activated everywhere but your feet so you don't fall through the ground, Aizawa says. K. Izuku walks over to a tree and starts doing his exercise. Aizawa rubs his eyes as he turns to Hitoshi. Sensei, there's something unusual about that student, Hitoshi says. It's circumstantial, there's nothing wrong with him that cannot be fixed, Aizawa replies. Let's start. While watching and training Hitoshi, Aizawa kept his eyes on Izuku as well to ensure he was doing as instructed and was okay. Aizawa noticed Izuku picking up and throwing rocks into the air, watching them fall through him. Before giggling and doing it again. After 3 days, he gave Izuku another task. I want you to teleport as close to the tree as possible without going into it, he says. Izuku thinks for a moment and then nods, running over to an area with dense trees where Aizawa can still see him. After a few hours, Aizawa and Hitoshi are startled by loud laughter. Aizawa sees Izuku halfway in a tree, and he seems to be stuck. I said close to the tree, not in it, Aizawa says, rubbing his face. Sorry, but the tingle feels funny, Izuku says with a small giggle. Tingle? Hitoshi asks. Whenever I activate my quirk, it tingles. Oh, and when I'm going through things, he says happily. Do you need help getting out? Aizawa asks. Izuku teleports out of the tree to stand in front of Aizawa. Nope. Aizawa instructs Izuku to continue with the exercise and goes back to training Hitoshi. Soon the week is over. During the last few days of internships, Aizawa received a call about 2 of his students fighting the hero killer Sane. At that moment, he felt especially relieved that Izuku had to stay with him because if he had gotten caught in that fight, who knows what could have happened. While watching Izuku, Aizawa noticed that every now and then, Izuku held his head in discomfort. Does your head hurt? Is it because of overusing your quirk? He asks. No, it's just a headache. My body goes numb when I overuse my quirk, Izuku explains. Numb? What do you mean? Hitoshi asks. Izuku looks around and picks up a rather sharp stick, and before Aizawa could react, he presses it against his arm, showing no sign of pain. Numb, Izuku says, holding out his arm with the stick still in it. Aizawa pulls the stick out and gently wraps the wound with some bandages he had brought with him. Don't do something like that again, understand? He scolds. Yes, Izuku replies, his cheerfulness fading. Take a break, Aizawa says. Sensei, Izuku says, getting Aizawa's attention before he turns away to continue instructing Hitoshi. That creature at the USJ attack. What about it? That looked familiar, Izuku says quietly. Never mind, not important. Izuku returns to his cheerful self and picks up a stick to draw in the dirt. Aizawa turns back to teach Hitoshi, realizing that Izuku's headaches may be connected to him regaining some of his memories from when he was kidnapped. Aizawa didn't want to consider what would happen to the young boy's already fragile mind when he remembers whatever happened to him during that time. After the internships, the students gathered to discuss their experiences and what transpired in Hosu. Meanwhile, Aizawa seized the opportunity to visit Principal Nizu's office for a private conversation. Come in, Nizu called out softly as Aizawa entered. Aizawa-sensei, what brings you here during class? Nizu inquired. It's about Midoriya, Aizawa replied, getting straight to the point. Oh, what's the matter? I believe he is slowly regaining his memories from the year he was missing. And how do you know this? Nizu asked, intrigued. He has been experiencing frequent headaches, which seem to be linked to the return of those memories, Aizawa explained. There's a concern about him recovering those memories. He will be unpredictable. He already is, but it may become worse, correct? Nizu questioned. Yes, his mind is already fragile without those memories. I can only imagine the impact when they return, Aizawa said gravely. I understand. Keep a close watch on him, Aizawa. I will look into this further, Nizu assured him. Okay. Now, get back to your class. Aizawa returned to his lively classroom, where students were still chatting about their internships. Hey, Deku, what did you do during your internship? Uraraka asked. I was with Aizawa-sensei. He helped me gain more control over my quirk, Izuku replied cheerfully. What happened to your arm, Midoriya-kun? Ida asked, noticing the injury. I had a little accident, Izuku said with a smile. Had an accident? Ida echoed, puzzled. Izuku nodded, still smiling. I explained to Aizawa-sensei what happens when I overuse my quirk, but he was confused, so I demonstrated. What happens when you overuse your quirk? Uraraka asked, curious. My body goes numb, Izuku explained. Numb? Ida repeated, surprised. Yeah, I can show you what I mean. Don't do that, Aizawa interjected. You promised you wouldn't do anything like that again. Right, sorry, Izuku said, rubbing his neck in embarrassment. What did he do, Aizawa-sensei? Uraraka asked. When he says numb, he means he can't feel anything. To demonstrate, he used a stick on his arm, Aizawa clarified. So, that injury. It's from where he demonstrated. Now, let's get class started. Please take your seats. Once the students settled down, Aizawa explained the upcoming exams. There will be 3 days of written exams followed by a practical exam. Oh no. Ah. Exams. Aizawa listened as many students expressed their fear and dread. Do your best studying for the exams, he said with a smirk. Soon, the exam PRD arrived, and after 3 days of written tests, the practical exams were upon them. Fighting robots is going to be easy. Ashido exclaimed, jumping with excitement. Yeah, we're all going to pass this test and go on the summer camping trip. Kaminari added. Is everyone here? Aizawa asked. The students noticed the other pro-hero teachers standing nearby. Suddenly, a small white critter popped out from Aizawa's scarf. Hello, students. Principal Nizu. The principal emerged from Aizawa's scarf, capturing the students' attention. You may have heard from others what the test will entail, he said. It's giant robots, right? Ashido and Kaminari asked hopefully. No, for various reasons, we've decided to change the test. You students will be paired up and will have to face one of these teachers, Nizu explained. The Class 1A students exchanged worried glances at the teachers behind Nizu. We can't win against pro-heroes, they exclaimed. Don't worry, we will have handicaps to make the test easier for you. Oh, and we've already chosen your pairs, Aizawa said, observing the students' expressions fall even further. First, Todoroki and Yaoyorozu will face me. Kaminari and Ashido will go against Principal Nizu. Aoyama and Uraraka are with 13, Koda and Jiro are with Present Mike, Tokoyami and Azui are with Ectoplasm, Mineta and Siro will face Midnight, Hagakure and Shoji will be with Snipe, Cementos will go against Kirishima. And Sato, and Ida and Ojiro will face Power Loader. Lastly, Bakugo and Midoriya will be up against All Might. Just as Aizawa mentioned his name, All Might appeared, beaming as he approached Bakugo and Izuku. Do your best, young Bakugo, young Midoriya. All Might encouraged. Why am I paired with this nerd? Bakugo shouted, clearly frustrated. We made the pairs based on your quirks and personalities. There's no changing them, Aizawa stated firmly. Bakugo turned to Izuku, who offered a reassuring smile. Bakugo grabbed Izuku's shirt and pulled him closer. You better not mess this up, nerd, he warned. Don't worry, Kaken. I won't hold you back like I used to, Izuku replied confidently. Bakugo glared at his old friend but eventually let him go, storming off in annoyance. Uraraka quickly approached Izuku. Are you okay? She asked, concerned. Bakugo-kun didn't have to be so aggressive, Ida added, gesturing emphatically. That's just Kaken. It doesn't bother me anymore, Izuku said, smiling as Bakugo made small explosions in his hands in frustration. Kirishima, Sato, you're up first. Go get ready. The rest of you can head to the surveillance room to watch the battles. Izuku followed the other students to the surveillance room to observe the matches. His and Bakugo's battle would be the last, but he had a sense of which groups would win and which would lose. The match between Sato and Kirishima ended quickly, surprising the class with its one-sided outcome. Wait, no one expected that? Izuku asked, bewildered. The others looked at him in shock. You knew they would lose? Yaoyorozu asked. I had a feeling, Izuku admitted, feeling a twinge of guilt. Wow, how did you know? Uraraka asked, impressed. Their endurance. Cementos was going to win based on that, and knowing those two, they would charge in without a strategy, Izuku explained. You're right, Yaoyorozu said thoughtfully, tapping her chin. This exam is meant to highlight our weaknesses and encourage us to overcome them, Izuku added. I think. That's correct, Recovery Girl chimed in from her chair, still focused on the monitors. The next battle featured Azui and Tokoyami, who managed to pass. The match revealed Tokoyami's vulnerability. His reliance on Dark Shadow made him weak in close combat, while Azui proved to be a balanced fighter who could support her teammates effectively. Ida and Ojiro also succeeded in their battle, utilizing Ida's speed to help Ojiro through the gate to victory. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu ended their match with a pass, serving as a lesson for Yaoyorozu that she could devise effective strategies and triumph over opponents using her own ideas. Todoroki learned the importance of collaboration and following plans. Izuku observed that during Uraraka and Aoyama's battle, Aoyama had asked Uraraka a question just before it concluded, but since they passed, Izuku dismissed it. Ashido and Kaminari faced defeat, realizing the challenge of competing against their exceptionally intelligent principal. Jiro and Koda cleverly used bugs to outsmart Present Mike, causing Izuku to laugh until his sides hurt at the absurdity of a pro being defeated by insects. Hagakure and Shoji passed, thanks to Hagakure's exceptional stealth while Shoji distracted Snipe. Izuku worried for Snipe when he accidentally elbowed Hagakure. Next up were Mineta and Siro against Midnight. Deku-kun, isn't your battle next? Uraraka asked. Yep, but I want to see how this one ends. I had ideas about how others would finish, but this one is a mystery, Izuku replied, watching as Mineta ran away from Midnight, visibly distressed. He was surprised when Mineta managed to get himself and Siro past the gate by sticking Midnight away from it with his sticky ball. Afterward, Izuku headed to his battleground. Upon arrival, he spotted Bakugo, who turned to him with a sour expression and clicked his tongue. Izuku smiled, hands behind his back. Kaken, do you have a plan? He asked. Beat All Might, Bakugo replied. I see, but this is All Might we're up against. I don't think that will work, Izuku said. Shut up and stay out of my way. As the doors to the arena opened, Bakugo stormed in, with Izuku happily following behind. Almost immediately, All Might unleashed a wave of pressure that nearly knocked Bakugo off his feet. This is going to be fun, Izuku hummed. Bakugo charged toward All Might, and Izuku eagerly followed. Suddenly, All Might appeared before them, delivering a punch that sent both Bakugo and Izuku crashing to the ground. Izuku gasped for air, having lost his breath from the impact. I didn't have enough time to activate my quirk. Interesting, let's try that again. Izuku stood up, brushing dirt off his clothes and running over to Bakugo. Since Bakugo hadn't been thrown too far, Izuku knew he had to get closer to All Might. Activating his quirk, he approached Bakugo. Kaken, are you okay? He asked. Young Midoriya, I'm still here, All Might said, preparing to punch Izuku again. Izuku grabbed Bakugo's arm, and when All Might swung at them, his fist went right through, sending a shockwave down the path they were running. What? All Might exclaimed, surprised since he had only seen Izuku teleport. Bakugo stood up, and Izuku still held on to him with his quirk active. Bakugo pulled away, causing Izuku to release him. We need a plan, Izuku said. Dropping his nickname and smile made Bakugo shiver, but he found himself nodding and following Izuku as they ran away from All Might. I can get the cuffs on him, but I'll need a distraction to get closer without him noticing. I'll attack him, Bakugo declared. Just like you wanted, right? Beat All Might, Izuku said. Bakugo was taken aback by Izuku's choice of words, but the determination in his eyes was different than usual. They put their plan into action. Bakugo handed Izuku the cuffs and dashed out to grab All Might's attention. Izuku watched for a moment before spotting an opening. He ran out, activating his quirk, the tingling sensation making him giggle. All Might noticed Izuku approaching and attempted to punch him, but his hand went right through. Realizing their plan, All Might threw Bakugo aside. Izuku moved to put the cuffs on All Might, but just before he could secure them, All Might grabbed them, aware of Izuku's intention. A shiver of fear ran down Izuku's spine as a vision of a larger man like All Might flashed in his mind. He made the cuffs phase through All Might before dropping to the ground, holding his head in pain. All Might didn't notice Izuku's distress as Bakugo suddenly attacked him. What the heck, nerd? You said that would work. Bakugo yelled. It was a plan. There was a chance it wouldn't, but I'm not finished yet, Izuku replied. Closing his eyes, he saw the man again. Standing up with a smile, he charged at All Might, who was preoccupied with Bakugo. Izuku leaped, but All Might took the opportunity to punch him away. You seem to keep forgetting, Izuku said as All Might's arm rushed through him. Quickly, he put the cuffs on before All Might could grab them, thanks to Bakugo being held by All Might, rendering his other arm useless. Izuku phased through All Might. All Might released Bakugo, but Izuku wasn't done yet. He attempted to attack All Might again, but it all happened in an instant. Aizawa wrapped Izuku in his scarf, erasing his quirk, while Midnight activated her quirk to induce sleep, and Present Mike placed quirk nullification cuffs on Izuku's outstretched arm. "Let go of me!" Izuku yelled, struggling as his body began to weaken from Midnight's influence. "Go to sleep, Midoriya," Aizawa said. "Let me go." Izuku passed out, and Present Mike caught him before he hit the floor. All Might stood, confused by what had just transpired. "Why are you all here?" Bakugo yelled. "Congratulations, you and Midoriya have passed," Aizawa said. "Take Midoriya back to the school along with the other kids. They will have questions, Aizawa, so be sure to answer them," Nizu instructed. "Yes, I will," Aizawa replied, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Back in the classroom, with Izuku in Recovery Girl's office, Bakugo crossed his arms. "What happened?" he asked, frustration evident in his voice. Aizawa sighed at Bakugo's choice of words. "You all know that Izuku went missing for a year 2 years ago?" Aizawa asked. The class silently nodded, waiting for him to continue. "Well, he was held captive for a year by villains, and it seems his memory is returning, making him less predictable and more dangerous." "Deku-kun isn't dangerous," Uraraka protests. "Then what do you think he was going to do to All Might even after the battle was over?" Aizawa asks. I don't know," Uraraka admits. "It's clear he doesn't have all of his memories yet, but he's been experiencing headaches lately, which indicates his memories are coming back," Aizawa explains. "By the way, those who passed, good job. Those who didn't will have to attend makeup classes during summer camp." "No. But you're all still going. Those who failed will receive extra lessons after the summer camp sessions." Woohoo! After their final exams, Class 1A decides to go shopping together for supplies for their camping trip. Ever since they were able to see Izuku again, he has been quieter than usual. He still has his normal bubbly personality, but he seems more reserved. "Deku-kun, are you okay?" Uraraka asks. Izuku nods and gives her a small smile. "I got into a lot of trouble," Izuku replies. "It's okay, Izuku. You're trying and they're helping you improve," Uraraka reassures him. "Yes, there's no need to worry, Midoriya-kun," Todoroki adds. Izuku smiles at them, and everyone disperses to gather their items, leaving Izuku with Uraraka. "Oh, Uraraka-san, I saw that Aoyama said something during your battle against 13 that made you let go of the railing. What did he say?" Izuku asks cheerfully. Uraraka's face turns bright red. "That to us. Nothing. You don't need to know. I need to get something by." Uraraka rushes away, and Izuku smiles after her. He looks around the shopping center and sighs. There are so many people. He hasn't been in such a crowded place since the school opening due to his condition. Suddenly, someone slightly taller than him drapes an arm over his shoulder. "Ah, you're from UA, aren't you? I saw the sports festival. It was amazing," the stranger says. "It was, but I didn't make it to the final 3, Izuku replies. "No, but I thought your quirk was amazing." Izuku frowns. His quirk doesn't stand out compared to others like Bakugo's or Todoroki's. He looks up at the man's face, and a wave of fear washes over him, though he can't pinpoint why. The longer he looks, the more familiar the face seems. "Let's take a seat," the man suggests, guiding Izuku to a chair. Once seated, the man places a hand around Izuku's throat. "I have 4 fingers on you right now. If I let go, your neck will be in serious trouble, so don't call for help, understand?" Izuku slowly nods. "And don't even think about using your quirk. I'll know if you do, and I'll cause as much chaos as I can before I escape. I wonder how many I could take down before the pros arrive." "I won't," Izuku whispers. "But, it's been a long time." Who are you?" Izuku asks, feeling a pounding headache and wishing for relief. "Who am I? My name is Shigaraki Tamura," the man grins. Izuku's head throbs at the mention of the name, and fragmented images flash in his mind. He wants to lean forward and rest his head in his hands, but he knows he must stay still. Instead, he squeezes his eyes shut, allowing the images to surface more clearly. I want to be the one everyone talks about, yet all they discuss is the hero killer Sane. But I was the one who released those Nomu at Hosu. Izuku's eyes widen at the sound of the man's voice. It feels hauntingly familiar. Was he the one who attacked USJ, the one who commanded the Nomu to assault his teacher and classmates? It's because of the video. Sane was able to share his beliefs, Izuku says. He hasn't seen the video himself, but he's heard classmates discussing it, and it does seem like Sane had a point. But I have my own beliefs. Shigaraki says, scratching his neck. Maybe I need to do something bigger to get everyone's attention. I wonder what I should do. You won't get away with this for much longer. The heroes will stop you, Izuku manages to say, wanting to warn the villain but also fearing for the safety of the civilians around them. Deku-kun, who's that? Uraraka suddenly appears in front of them. He's an old friend, Izuku says quickly, trying to shield her from the truth. Oh, don't worry. We've just finished talking, haven't we? Shigaraki says with a smile. Why? Yes, Izuku stutters, hoping Uraraka doesn't sense something is wrong. Uraraka starts, eyeing Shigaraki carefully. Shigaraki stands up, releasing Izuku, and shoves his hands into his pockets. You're the villain that attacked USJ, she states. Shigaraki smiles before disappearing into the crowd. Izuku exhales a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He tries to stand up to check on Uraraka, but his legs give out beneath him. The pressure in his head feels unbearable. Deku-kun, are you okay? Uraraka grabs his shoulders and shakes him gently. My head hurts, Izuku admits. Uraraka recalls Aizawa's words about his memory and quickly pulls out her phone to call for help. He'll be long gone, Izuku says weakly. How do you know? Uraraka asks, concerned. I don't know. Just then, Izuku loses consciousness and collapses, but Uraraka catches him. Deku-kun, Deku-kun. Uraraka-san, what happened? Todoroki rushes over with some of their classmates. It was the guy from USJ. He was here threatening Deku-kun, and he just passed out. Uraraka explains, panic in her voice. After a few minutes, an ambulance and pro-heroes arrived, including Aizawa. What happened? He asked, watching as the paramedics carefully lifted Izuku onto a stretcher. It was the man from the attack at USJ. He threatened Deku, Uraraka explained. Was anyone hurt? Aizawa inquired. No, he just left when I got back, Uraraka replied. Aizawa checked on Izuku and noticed that he had his eyes squeezed shut in pain. Did he say anything about his head? Aizawa asked. Yes, he mentioned that his head hurt after the man left, Uraraka said. This could complicate things. Okay, everyone, get on the bus in class order. Ida shouted, trying to organize Class 1A. Izuku found it amusing when the bus turned out to be completely different from what Ida had hoped, and his organization didn't quite work out. To avoid dampening his friend's mood further, he held back his laughter. Soon, the bus was off, and they were on their way to the camp. Everyone was chatting among themselves about various topics, but Bakugo noticed Izuku staring out the window, humming a small tune that sent shivers down his spine. Hey Deku, was Bakugo always so explosive? Azui asked. Yep, when we were younger, we were best friends. Izuku replied, snapping back to the conversation with a big smile. What happened? You don't seem that close now, Uraraka said. Bakugo got his quirk, and I was determined to remain quirkless, Izuku explained. Bakugo, you stopped being his friend because he didn't get a quirk? Kirishima asked. Shut up, Bakugo said, still looking out the window. But it's okay now, I have a quirk. Izuku said cheerfully. Yeah, why didn't you get your quirk when you were younger? Ida asked. Don't know, Izuku replied. But the doctors think I got my quirk because of extreme stress. That's nonsense, Bakugo chimed in. If that were true, your quirk would reflect your parents' abilities. Who knows? I don't remember what happened, Izuku said, smiling. Bakugo stared at Izuku as he turned to listen to Uraraka, who had started talking again. Bakugo knew Izuku was slowly regaining his memory. Aizawa had mentioned it himself, and he was right. Some parts of Izuku's personality were changing, making him more unpredictable. Bakugo wanted to know what happened during the year Izuku went missing, but he hoped that Izuku's memories from that time would remain buried. Soon, the bus stopped and the students got off. Finally, a break. Where are the restrooms? Mineta yelled, jumping off the bus and looking around. Izuku hopped off the bus and immediately noticed a small car waiting off to the side, eyeing it suspiciously. "This isn't a rest stop," he heard one of his classmates say. "No, this is where we part," Aizawa stated. "But we're not at the camp area yet," Ida protested. "Sensei, why is there a car?" Izuku asked. Suddenly, two ladies appeared with a young boy. "We're the wild pussycats," they said in unison. "The pussycats are helpers for this camp," Aizawa added with a small smile. "We own this land from here to that mountain over there. The camp house is at the base of the mountain, and you must make it through this forest before lunch," Mandalay announced. "What? We should go back to the bus. We'll see you kids there." The ground beneath the students shifted, pushing them into the forest. Out of nowhere, a giant earth creature emerged and charged at them. It swung a massive fist toward the group. Everyone jumped out of the way, except for Izuku, who stood still, smiling as the creature's fist hurtled toward him. "Deku!" Uraraka yelled as the creature's fist struck the ground, sending dirt flying and obscuring their view. Laughter could be heard afterward. "I wonder if this thing has a core," Izuku mused as he phased through the creature's hand and climbed up to its head. "What will happen if I put you back into the ground?" With that, both the creature and Izuku vanished beneath the earth. Moments later, Izuku popped back up. "Where is the monster?" Ida asked. "Underground," Izuku replied happily. He suddenly turned around and started heading toward the large mountain in front of them. The students missed lunch entirely as they didn't arrive at the camp on time. "Good job making it here. Since you missed lunch, we will prepare dinner for you all, but just this once. After this, you will have to cook your own meals," Aizawa announced. After dinner, the students headed to the hot springs for a bath. All the boys were already in the water when Izuku walked in. Scars marked his body, shocking the others. "Wow, where did you get all of those?" Kirishima asked. "The small ones I did myself, the others I don't remember." Izuku replied cheerfully. "This is nice, but the best part is over that wall," Mineta said, eyeing the wall that separated the boys' spring from the girls. All the boys watched Mineta, aware of his intentions. "You," Kaminari said, understanding Mineta's plan. "Mineta, stop. What you're doing is disrespectful to both yourself and the girls. It's shameful behavior," Ida said, standing up and making his way over to Mineta. Izuku had yet to get into the water. He watched as Mineta reached for a ball from his head while staring at the wall. Before Mineta could attempt to scale it, Izuku rushed over and grabbed his ankle, pulling him down hard onto the ground. "What the heck?" Mineta yelled at Izuku. Izuku smiled, and a shiver ran down Mineta's spine. "If you try that again," Izuku began, his smile fading, "I might have to teach you a lesson you won't forget." Mineta's face turned pale at the threat, and he quickly covered himself. Izuku let him go and hopped into the spring for his bath. "Hey nerd," Bakugo spoke up. "Do you really not remember what happened 2 years ago?" The entire spring fell silent at this question. Everyone secretly wanted to know if Izuku's memory had returned. Izuku smiled back at Bakugo. "Who knows? I've been having strange dreams lately," Izuku confessed. After their bath, the students went to bed. "Hey, Deku-kun, did Mineta try anything while we were in the bath?" Uraraka asked. "He tried, failed, and shouldn't try again. I've made him a promise, so if he makes any of you girls uncomfortable again, just let me know," Izuku said with a grin. "Good night, Uraraka-san." Izuku hopped away, and Uraraka managed to catch one of the other boys as they walked past. "Todoroki-kun, Deku-kun just said that he made a promise to Mineta." "What did he mean by that?" she asked. "He told Mineta-kun that if he tried to do anything to you girls again, he would teach him a lesson." "It seems to have stopped Mineta for now," Todoroki replied. He wished her good night and left for bed, leaving Uraraka stunned by the information. She quickly shared what she had learned with the other girls. The next day, they started their training. Class 1B arrived to see a chaotic scene of students using their quirks. They noticed one student being spoken to by Aizawa and told to sit out of the exercises. Monoma approached the annoyed student. "Oh, what's this? A Class 1A student in trouble, having to sit out of training," Monoma teased. Izuku looked up at the Class 1B student, who wore a smug expression. "Oh, if it isn't 1B. Do you want me to show you what I can do?" Izuku asked with a smile. "And no," Monoma replied. "Then don't test me." Izuku continued to smile as a girl from 1B dragged Monoma away after apologizing for her classmates' behavior. Izuku had gotten into trouble because of his threat to Mineta the night before, but all the girls thanked him that morning for stopping Mineta from peeking at them. After training, the students cooked dinner. Izuku happily helped chop vegetables next to Bakugo, who was moving quickly despite holding a knife. "Be careful, stupid nerd," Bakugo said, watching Izuku cut the carrots. "I'll be fine, Kaken," Izuku replied cheerfully. Later that night, the test of courage was being set up, and Izuku couldn't wait to participate. "Okay, draw lots to see who you're going to be paired with," Ragdoll announced, holding out strips. Izuku ended up without a partner due to the odd number of students. "Midoriya-kun, you can choose a pair and go as a trio," Mandalay told him. "Okay." Izuku turned around and smiled. "Deku-kun, come with us," Uraraka invited. "Sure." Izuku joined Uraraka and her partner. Soon, the test of courage began, and the pairs went through when it was their turn. Izuku happily walked a little behind the two girls as they navigated the course. However, he soon grew bored. There was nothing scary about this test of courage at all. He deviated from the path and made his way to a small cliff in the mountains. When he reached the top, he noticed a young boy who had been around Mandalay and Ragdoll. "Hello," Izuku greeted cheerfully. The young boy jumped, startled by his sudden appearance. "What do you want, hero wannabe?" he asked. "The test of courage was boring, so I escaped," Izuku replied, sitting down next to the boy. "Go away," the boy said, annoyed. "No. This place has a nice view," Izuku said. The boy sat down next to him but shuffled away slightly. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. What's your name?" Izuku asked. "Kota," the boy replied quietly. "Hey, Kota, it seems you don't like heroes. Why is that?" Izuku inquired. "It doesn't matter," Kota retorted. "I don't really like heroes either," Izuku said, lying back on the dirt. "Why?" Kota asked, intrigued. 2 years ago, I was kidnapped," Izuku explained. "Did heroes save you?" Kota asked. "Nope, I somehow escaped myself. Heroes had nothing to do with it," Izuku replied. He rolled over to look at Kota. "So I hated them. They didn't save me, and now I have no memory of those 2 years." "You lost your memory?" "Yep. I can't remember anything from when I was kidnapped to when I escaped. I had to stay a full year in a hospital," Izuku explained. "It was so boring." Suddenly, Izuku smelled something strange. He sat up and noticed that the forest was partially covered in a strange mist. "Well, what do we have here?" Izuku stood up and quickly turned around to see an unusually large man with massive muscles. "Kota, grab my hand." Kota quickly took Izuku's hand and hid behind him. "You're going to feel a little tingly, don't worry about it, okay?" Izuku saw Kota nod and then activated his quirk. Almost immediately, the muscle man threw a punch at them, but his hand went right through the two boys, surprising him. "Well, that's never happened before." The man took a closer look at Izuku and smiled. "Do you know someone named Bakugo Katsuki?" Izuku instantly realized they were after Bakugo. "I don't." "Get out of here, or you'll be in serious trouble," Izuku warned. "You'll never be able to beat me, you're nothing but a child." "Kota, I'm going to let you go. I want you to run and hide somewhere safe, okay?" Izuku instructed. "Okay," Kota stammered. Izuku released Kota, and the young boy ran away toward the mountain wall. The muscle man ignored the fleeing boy and tried to hit Izuku again, but just like before, his fist went right through Izuku's body. Seizing the opportunity, Izuku climbed onto the man's head and used his quirk to reach into the man's throat. "Be good and go to sleep," Izuku said, squeezing the man's throat shut to cut off his air supply. The man thrashed about, trying to dislodge Izuku, but he grew weaker as he struggled to breathe. Soon he passed out. Izuku had to ensure he was still alive. He couldn't be a hero if he had harmed someone. He immobilized the man halfway into the ground, ensuring he couldn't escape even if he regained consciousness. Izuku picked Koda up onto his back and made his way back to the camp. He left Koda with Mandalay and asked her to inform everyone that their target seemed to be Bakugo. Izuku then ventured into the forest to search for Bakugo, eventually finding him alongside Todoroki. "Kaken, they are after you for some reason," Izuku said. "Who cares? Let's take them down." Bakugo replied, his hands crackling with energy. "It would be wise to get you back to the teachers," Todoroki suggested. "Let's get out of the forest," Izuku urged. As they ran through the trees, Izuku spotted Uraraka and Tsuyu. "Uraraka," he called out. "Deku-kun." The two girls rushed over. "There's a villain here. She's lurking in the shadows." Suddenly, a girl their age appeared, a wide grin on her face. She scanned the students before her, and when she spotted Izuku, her smile grew even wider. "Ah, look, so many to choose from," she said excitedly. "Ding dong, I know you can hear me. Open up the door. I only want to play a little." Bakugo felt a strange familiarity with the tune she sang. It dawned on him that it was the same melody Izuku had been humming on the bus. They all decided to flee from the young villain, but soon they found themselves in a small clearing, and everything took a turn for the worse. "Where's Deku-kun?" Uraraka asked. The group looked around, searching for the green-haired boy, but he was nowhere to be found. Then they heard a soft laugh. "Hello, young heroes, my name is Compress," the man said. "Give Deku back." Bakugo shouted, jumping at the man, but instead of helping, he was transformed into a small marble. Todoroki shot ice at the man, but it was quickly melted by blue flames. "An ice quirk? Interesting," the flame-wielding man remarked. "Dabi, I have the target," Compress said. "Okay, we just have to wait for Kurogiri to appear," Dabi replied. Suddenly, red flames shot toward them. Dabi deflected the flames with his own. He turned to see it was the same boy who had shot ice at him. "Oh, a duo quirk, even better. Give Midoriya and Bakugo back now," Todoroki yelled at the villains. "Make me," Dabi taunted, igniting his hand. He reached out to unleash fire toward the young heroes, but Todoroki was reminded of how Izuku had reacted to his flames during the sports festival. He blocked the fire with ice, but when it melted, the villains had vanished. After returning to the main camp area, Todoroki informed Aizawa that they had taken Izuku and Bakugo and disappeared. "I'm sorry, we weren't able to get them back," Todoroki said. "Don't worry, we will get them back," Aizawa reassured him. "Sensei, I think the villains that attacked are the same ones that kidnapped Midoriya 2 years ago," Todoroki voiced his concerns. Aizawa turned to him. "Why do you think that?" he asked. "When we were fighting against a young girl villain, she started singing a song that matched the one Midoriya hums. Bakugo noticed it too. Then I encountered a flame user that reminded me of how Midoriya reacted to my flames during the sports festival," Todoroki explained. The last thing Bakugo remembered was being in the forest fighting against villains. "So how did he end up in a bar tied to a chair?" "Oh look, he's awake." Bakugo scanned the room filled with various villains, scowling. "Izuku-kun, let's play hide and seek again." At the mention of Izuku, Bakugo looked around for him but couldn't see him. "Where is Deku?" he yelled. "Deku," Shigaraki replied, confused until he realized Bakugo was using an insulting nickname for Izuku. "Oh, you call him that? That's amusing." "He's playing hide and seek with Toga," Dabi chimed in. "What do you villains want?" Bakugo demanded, fuming with anger. "Oh, nothing much. I watched the sports festival and saw how everyone booed you for going all out on a girl, calling you a villain," Shigaraki said, spinning on the bar stool. Dabi leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching Bakugo. "What about it?" Bakugo snapped, already annoyed. First, they were kidnapped. Second, Izuku was also taken, and he couldn't see him but knew something was happening to him. Thirdly, Shigaraki had to bring up the sports festival and irritate him even more. Well, we agree with them, you'd make a wonderful villain. Your quirk is incredibly strong, and your explosive attitude you're made to be a villain. So, we brought you here to ask you to join the League of Villains, Shigaraki said, spreading his arms in a show of the bar. Bakugo glared at him. This was why he was kidnapped to be recruited. Anger surged within him, and even though he was tied up with quirk suppression cuffs, he would do as much damage as he could to these villains without his quirk. So, what's your answer? Bakugo took a deep breath to respond, but before he could, the door in front of him swung open, and Izuku stumbled in. Bakugo immediately notices the suppression cuffs on his wrists, but what catches his attention more are the small cuts and bruises scattered across Izuku's body. Izuku stumbles and falls to his knees in front of the villains. Toga appears behind him. "I found him," she exclaims, squatting down next to Izuku with a smile. "Do you want to play again, Izuku-an?" Izuku quickly shakes his head. "Abu. Deku!" Bakugo yells. Izuku looks up and gives Bakugo a small smile before Toga pulls him back through the door they came from, announcing that they will have another round of hide and seek. "How do you bastard no Deku? Why did you kidnap him too?" "How do we know him?" "We've known Izuku-an for a year," Dabi smirks, watching as Bakugo's eyes widen in shock. "You're the ones who kidnapped him 2 years ago." Bakugo yells. Master needed a test subject. It turns out the younger ones weren't working, their bodies weren't strong enough. So he needed someone older, but those with quirks wouldn't do. Then Master found out about a quirkless child old enough to undergo the tests, Shigaraki explains. "You experimented on him. How do you think a quirkless boy got a quirk?" Kurogiri says from behind the bar, silently cleaning glasses while everyone talks. "You monsters! You did more than give him a quirk, you've shattered his spirit." Bakugo hisses. His sanity didn't matter, what mattered was whether he followed orders. "But he never did, so he is a failure," Shigaraki says. "But that doesn't matter. Do you have an answer?" "Unlock these chains and you'll find out," Bakugo sneers. "Dabi-kun, Izuku-an has passed out." Toga shouts from the door behind Shigaraki. Dabi groans and steps through the door, dragging an unconscious Izuku and dropping him near the couches on the other side of the room. Bakugo stares at Izuku's condition, noticing even more cuts on his skin. Izuku was good entertainment when we first got him. He tried to escape at every chance, but eventually he gave up. "We used him to test new Nomu that Master wanted to experiment with," Shigaraki begins. "Yeah, and Izuku-an played with me. I love seeing him all messy, it really suits him," Toga says, grinning. "He almost didn't make it a few times, but Master wanted him alive," Shigaraki comments. "Oh yeah, Toga and her games were a bit much for him and the Nomu tests," Dabi adds, sitting down on one of the couches. "Didn't he become like a shell of himself after a few months? It almost looked like he was having fun with Toga at one point." "Yeah," Toga exclaims, bouncing in place. "He would play with me without complaining or asking me to stop." "He was like that because he gave up," Kurogiri says. "Yeah, he didn't even try to leave, so we didn't need to restrain his quirk. But some idiot left the TV on, and he saw something about heroes, instinctively activated his quirk, and escaped," Shigaraki says, frustrated with everyone. "We keep saying it was you just don't want to take the blame," Dabi retorts. "Whatever," Shigaraki replies, annoyed. "Master wasn't happy he got away. But then we saw him when we attacked USJ and later on TV during the UA Sports Festival," Kurogiri adds. "We wanted him back, he was fun to have around and useful for testing the Nomu," Shigaraki says, smirking at Bakugo. Bakugo knows Shigaraki dislikes him, so he wonders why the villain thinks he would ever join their group. "I'm never joining your pathetic little group, I'm going to be a hero," Bakugo shouts, smirking at Shigaraki. "And you're foolish to think you had a chance to get me." After a full day, the heroes can finally begin the raid on the villain's hideout, thanks to the tracker that Yaoyorozu planted on one of them. What the heroes don't know is that some of UA's students are also hiding out to rescue their friends. "We need to end this once and for all," Principal Nizu says. "This is the information we have on the hideout. Thanks to Yaoyorozu, who created a tracker, we know where they are and can make this raid to rescue the students and hopefully eliminate these villains once and for all, Aizawa says, handing out sheets of paper. There are 2 locations we are hitting today, the hideout where our students are and a place we suspect to be a Nomo factory. This seems almost too easy, and it's all thanks to a student, one of the heroes comments. Don't take this as an easy task. Our number 1 objective is to rescue the kidnapped students. They may be put in harm's way if we engage the villains first, and we do not want that, Aizawa warns. After their meeting, the heroes began preparing for the raid on the villains' hideout, and others were getting ready as well. This is a bad idea. The teachers and other heroes can handle this fine, so why are you doing this? Ida asked, following his 3 classmates who were determined to rescue Bakugo and Izuku without the teacher's consent. If you don't like it, why are you coming? Kirishima replied. I need to keep you all out of trouble as the class president, Ida insisted. We're going to rescue our classmates. The teachers might get too caught up in capturing the villains to ensure their safety, Todoroki said. This operation is to rescue those 2. I'm pretty sure they will be the main objective, Ida argued. No one knows what will come of this operation. We're going to make sure they are rescued, Yaoyorozu added. Ida sighed, realizing he could not change their minds. He knew they would get into a lot of trouble, but there was little he could do to stop them. After a few hours, everyone was ready to start the operation. The heroes gathered at their meeting points, waiting for the appointed time to begin their raids. The students ended up near the Noma factory, dressed in disguises to conceal their identities from onlookers. Soon the time arrived. Let's rescue those kids. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit bar, Shigaraki faced Bakugo. Bakugo glared at the villain, sitting silently and scanning the room. His gaze fell on Izuku, who was lying on the ground near the couches where Dabi had left him. Dabi, unlock his cuffs, Shigaraki commanded. What? No, he'll blast me if I do that, Dabi protested. Just do it. How can I ask someone to join us while they're tied up like this? Shigaraki insisted. Reluctantly, Dabi approached and unlocked Bakugo's cuffs and chains. Bakugo immediately stood up, and Dabi quickly moved to stand near Shigaraki. Bakugo was about to speak when small groans drew everyone's attention. Ah, Izuku is waking up, Toga said with a giggle that reminded Bakugo of Izuku's, further fueling his anger. Izuku sat up and looked around the room. Spotting Bakugo, he quickly stood and rushed over to him, eager to escape the villains surrounding him. Ah, what's wrong, Izuku? Are you scared of us? Dabi taunted. Izuku stared at the floor, unable to respond. So, Bakugo, what's your answer? I'm starting to get impatient, Shigaraki said, annoyance creeping into his voice. My answer to your ridiculous recruitment is no. I'm going to be a hero, and I'm going to make sure you all end up in prison. Bakugo shouted. Suddenly, the wall was smashed in, and All Might appeared. Shigaraki scratched his neck, clearly annoyed by the sudden turn of events. Before All Might could reach his students, both he and the villains were enveloped in a dark mist and teleported away. All Might instantly recognized the location. When Bakugo opened his eyes, he found himself in a partially destroyed warehouse. He quickly searched for Izuku, who had collapsed in shock. Bakugo grabbed his shirt and pulled him to his feet. Stand up, dude. We're getting out of here, he said firmly. I. Izuku stuttered, his words only fueling Bakugo's frustration. Stop mumbling. Speak up. Bakugo yelled. Master, Izuku finally managed to say, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. Bakugo followed his gaze and noticed a large man without eyes or a mouth standing a few feet away. Oh, Izuku, it's good to see you again. How is your quirk working? The man asked. Bakugo felt unnerved. The man spoke without a mouth and radiated power. Izuku immediately fell silent, not responding. From watching the sports festival, it seems you're gaining more control over it. Suddenly, All Might appeared, zeroing in on the large man before them. All for one, he exclaimed. Bakugo could hear the anger in his voice and noticed that All Might was not smiling. A chill ran down Bakugo's spine. He tugged on Izuku's shirt, trying to get him to move, but he was frozen in place. Bakugo knew that a battle between All Might and someone as powerful as him would be dangerous. They needed to escape. As the other villains began to close in on them, a wall exploded, and two figures came flying through. Ice shot up into the sky, and they used it to launch themselves into the air. "Bakugo!" Kirishima called, extending his arm. "Don't let them escape." Shigaraki yelled, spotting the other students in the air. Bakugo smirked and prepared his free hand. He wasn't sure if he could reach high enough with one hand while holding Izuku, but he had to try. He unleashed a powerful explosion, propelling himself into the sky towards his friends while still holding onto Izuku tightly. "You idiots," he said with a smirk. Kirishima smiled back at him. They landed away from the battle and ran. Bakugo kept a firm grip on Izuku, who seemed too dazed to move on his own. They soon made it into town, where a live feed of the battle was being broadcast. All Might was fighting against All for One. Bakugo remembered the villain's name. Izuku still wore the Quirk-canceling cuffs and remained silent as he watched the video of the battle unfold. At one point, it appeared that All Might might lose, his frail form shocking everyone, especially Bakugo and the other students. But thanks to his determination, All Might ultimately defeated All for One, and the battle ended as swiftly as it had begun. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu met up with Kirishima and Ida. Todoroki approached Izuku, but Bakugo stopped him. "What's wrong?" Todoroki asked. "He's been acting strange ever since we were taken. I don't know what happened to him, but those villains are the ones who kidnapped him 2 years ago," Bakugo explained. After the battle, Ida, Todoroki, Kirishima, and Yaoyorozu handed Bakugo and Izuku over to the police. They were finally safe, but Todoroki and the others were worried about Izuku. He hadn't spoken a word the entire time they were together and even refused to talk to the police. It seemed the whole incident had resurfaced painful memories, and no one knew what to expect. After we were rescued, I and the overly enthusiastic nerd were taken to the police station for questioning. "Bakugo, why did they kidnap you?" Detective Tsukachi asked. "Those guys wanted me to join their marching band." Bakugo replied, crossing his arms defiantly. "What did they want with Izuku Midoriya?" Tsukachi inquired. "Ask him," Bakugo said with a shrug. "The thing is, Midoriya isn't responding to any questions. He's completely unresponsive," Tsukachi explained. "They wanted him back," Bakugo stated. "Back?" Tsukachi asked, confused. "They're the ones who kidnapped him 2 years ago. They broke him even more," Bakugo said. He answered all of Tsukachi's questions, and when he was released, they let him go with Izuku. Izuku remained silent, even when his mother came to pick him up. UA proposed a dorm system and visited all the students' homes to inform their parents and seek permission for their children to stay at UA for safety. Inko was understandably upset that her son had been kidnapped, but she knew she couldn't handle him alone and reluctantly agreed to the dorm system. After a few weeks, the dorms were completed, and the students moved in. The day after, classes resumed. Bakugo walked into his classroom to find Izuku sitting at his desk, staring out the window. He was immediately approached by other students. "Izuku has been here for a while, but he hasn't said a thing," Uraraka noted. "He doesn't seem to notice anyone around him," Ida added. "What happened to you too?" Todoroki asked. Bakugo scoffed. "Those guys who took us were the same ones who took him 2 years ago. They forced that quirk onto the nerd," Bakugo explained. "They forced a quirk onto him?" Uraraka asked, surprised. "You make it sound like Midoriya didn't have a quirk before," Ida said. "That's exactly what I'm saying, Four Eyes. The nerd was quirkless until he was found," Bakugo replied, pushing past them to take his seat in front of Izuku. He glanced at Izuku before turning back to face the front with a scoff. Soon, Aizawa arrived. He looked over at Izuku and sighed before explaining the situation and starting their lessons. A week later, Izuku was running late to class. Aizawa had just arrived and immediately noticed one of his students was missing. "Where's Midoriya?" he asked. Suddenly, before anyone could answer, the classroom door swung open, and Izuku stood there, breathing heavily as if he had sprinted from the dorms. "You're late," Aizawa remarked. "Sorry, I accidentally smashed my alarm clock," Izuku said apologetically. The whole class was shocked. He seemed back to normal, yet just the day before he had been silent and unresponsive. Aizawa sighed. "Take your seat, Midoriya," he instructed. "Yes," Izuku said cheerfully as he hurried to his seat, and their lessons began. During break times, Izuku was his usual self, happy, talkative, and bubbly. Everyone was relieved but also worried about how quickly he had reverted to the Izuku they knew. During their last lesson, Todoroki noticed Izuku drawing on his arm. He was about to dismiss it until he saw Izuku stop drawing and start pressing the pen into his skin. A small trickle of blood ran down his arm and onto his desk. Todoroki quickly got up and grabbed Izuku's hand, pulling the pen away to stop him from hurting himself further. Everyone was startled by Todoroki's sudden action, but when they noticed the blood, concern spread through the classroom. "Are you okay, Deku?" Uraraka asked. "I'm fine," Izuku replied cheerfully, as if he hadn't just hurt himself. Despite the evident pain, he showed no reaction to the blood pooling on his desk. "Midoriya, go to Recovery Girl's office," Aizawa ordered. Izuku stood up after Todoroki released his arm. "Yes," Izuku said happily as he left the classroom, and Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. "All of you stay here. I need to speak with Principal Nizu for a moment," Aizawa instructed before leaving, giving the students no chance to ask questions. Aizawa informed Nizu about what had happened. He had been keeping the principal updated on Izuku's condition. All the teachers were concerned about his sudden return to the cheerful child he had been before the incident. While he seemed like his normal self, there were signs indicating he wasn't fully back to normal. The first was that he had destroyed his alarm clock and had been late multiple times, which worried the teachers because they didn't know how he behaved in his sleep. The second was that he often zoned out. Aizawa had instructed the other students not to approach him if he didn't respond to his name after 3 tries, as they were unsure how he would react if someone tried to touch him while he was zoned out. We should get him tested," Nizu suggested. "Take some other teachers and restrain him. He probably won't go willingly since he spent a year in the hospital." "Understood. What should I tell the other students?" Aizawa asked. "Just tell them the truth. They will find out sooner or later, and sooner is better in this situation. They obviously know something is wrong with Midoriya," Nizu replied. "Okay, I'll be going now," Aizawa said. He headed to the teacher's office to gather some other heroes who could help him catch Izuku. When Aizawa returned to the classroom, Izuku and some others were chatting. When they heard the door open, they looked over to see not only their teacher but a few others as well. "Why are the other teachers here?" Uraraka asked. "Midoriya, Principal Nizu wants you to get an evaluation," Aizawa said. Izuku immediately understood what that meant and stood up quickly. "Hell no," he shouted, shocking his classmates. Aizawa sighed. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. "If you go willingly, it will be easier on all of us," Aizawa said. "I'm not going anywhere near a place that does evaluations. If you want to take me, you're going to have to catch me," Izuku shouted, attempting to run away. But Aizawa was quicker, using his capture gear to grab one of Izuku's legs. As Izuku struggled, Midnight approached him. "Leave me alone," Izuku exclaimed, jumping away from Midnight, only to be caught by someone he never expected, Bakugo. Bakugo wrapped his arms around Izuku's to stop his movements. "Just listen to the teachers, you stupid nerd," Bakugo growled, clearly annoyed by the situation. Izuku squirmed against Bakugo's grip. If only Aizawa hadn't cancelled his quirk, he thought he could escape easily. "I'm not going. After spending a year with those villains and finally escaping, what do the people I trusted do? They locked me up for another year, saying it was for my own good. I felt no different. The only thing that wasn't happening was the experiments and games," Izuku yelled. "It was strange not feeling the sting of cuts on my skin, blood running down my body, or the pain of broken bones. Everyone said I needed help, I just wanted to feel something." "You wanted it to feel the way it was when you were with the villains. That's what everyone was trying to fix," Bakugo replied. Izuku turned to Bakugo with a smile that felt unsettling. "Too late," he sang. Midnight activated her quirk, and Izuku slowly lost consciousness. Before they took him away, they quickly placed him in a straitjacket and attached a quirk-nullifying anklet, ensuring he couldn't use his abilities. Midnight and the other teachers escorted Izuku away, while Aizawa remained behind to address the rest of the students. "Sensei, what is happening? Why are you taking Midoriya away?" Ida asked. "Everyone sit down. I'll explain," Aizawa said, waiting for the classroom to quiet down before detailing Izuku's situation. He explained that 2 years prior, Izuku had been kidnapped by the League and subjected to experiments. Because of this trauma, he wasn't in his right mind, and things had worsened after the incident where Izuku and Bakugo were taken. Aizawa also mentioned that Izuku had little control over his quirk because it wasn't originally his. "What do you mean by that?" Todoroki asked. "Deku was quirkless until he was kidnapped. The moment he was found, he had a quirk. Auntie Inko said that the doctors believed it could have manifested due to the stress of being kidnapped, but the quirk he has doesn't match either of his parents," Bakugo explained. "When we were with those villains, they said they needed a quirkless person older than 4 for their experiments because they couldn't have a quirk of their own, and if they were younger than 4, they would not survive. Only 20% of the population is quirkless, and there aren't many in Japan either. Izuku was quirkless in middle school, making him exactly what they were looking for in their experiments. They took him and did just that for the year they had him until he escaped using the very quirk they gave him," Aizawa continued. "He was then taken to a hospital due to his mental instability from the torture and experimentation. It took him a year to be released, but he needed to learn how to control his quirk, so Principal Nizu brought him to UA for training." "So, you always knew about him?" Uraraka asked. "The staff has always been aware of Midoriya's situation. He was manageable, but because of recent incidents, he has become even more unpredictable. None of us know the extent of the damage done to his mind or what he could do to himself or others when he snaps. We thought it best to get him treatment to prevent him from hurting himself or anyone else." A few weeks after Izuku was taken away, Nizu suddenly appeared in Class 1A's classroom. "Aizawa-kun, we have something to do," he said cheerfully. "But I have class," Aizawa replied. "It's about Midoriya-kun. The kids can come too," Nizu insisted. "Understood." Aizawa, Nizu, and Class 1A headed to the hospital where Izuku was being kept. Aizawa and Nizu were taken to a separate room from the kids. After a moment, a door opened, and Izuku was let in. He didn't have any restraints, but Aizawa noted the quirk-canceling cuff around his ankle. "Midoriya-kun, may I ask why you wanted to see us?" Aizawa inquired. "Thank you for coming. I'm sure it was a very short-notice request," Izuku said. Aizawa immediately noticed that he seemed different from usual. "You seem more like yourself, Midoriya-kun," Nizu observed. Izuku laughed, but it was a different sound, normal, not unsettling. "I've been told that it could change at any moment, which is why I asked to talk to you as soon as possible, before this goes away. I'm as close to the original Izuku Midoriya as I can get right now," he explained. "Well, what did you wish to talk about?" Aizawa asked, taking his seat in front of his teacher and principal. "I wanted to tell you about what happened during the year I was missing," Izuku said. "You remember?" Aizawa asked, surprised. "Yes, all of it." "Then it makes even less sense that you are like this," Aizawa said. "I know, but let me start before I go back to what you know." "Yes, go on," Nizu encouraged. Izuku looked over at the one-way glass that occupied an entire wall. "Are the others behind that glass? I guess this would be a good learning opportunity. When I was kidnapped, I was just walking home from school. Normally, I would take some time to watch any hero fights and record what I saw in my notebook, but I hadn't heard anything that day, so I was just heading home when they appeared." "They appeared? Did you know you were going to be kidnapped when they showed up?" Aizawa asked. Izuku shook his head. "Shigaraki came out of Kurogyari, and then everything went dark. I don't know what they did to me. When I woke up, I was already at their base, locked in a concrete cell. They knew I was quirkless, but I wasn't surprised. It wasn't a secret, and villains have ways of finding out information if they need it," Izuku explained. "What about when they gave you the quirk?" Nizu inquired. "That took a few months," Izuku replied immediately. "A few months? Why?" Aizawa asked. "They had to find a quirk that would work well with my body. Day in and day out, They pushed different quirks into me and then pulled them back out. It was an incredibly unpleasant experience, almost like they were tearing at my skin or nerves. Each time felt like something was being ripped away, and having it put in wasn't any better. I didn't last long during the first few attempts, but as the days went on, I learned to endure the pain, and the tests continued for longer PRDS. And they stopped when they found the quirk that fit you? Nizu asked. Izuku started to laugh. Stop? When they found a quirk that worked for me, they made me fight a Nomu. They wanted to create a Nomu that could defeat All Might. I don't see how having a recently quirkless kid fight against a Nomu would help them understand whether it could take down All Might, but that's what happened. I almost died a few times and woke up covered in bandages, but I felt no pain. I later realized that I felt no pain because I had overworked my quirk, Izuku explained. After discussing his experiences with Aizawa and Nizu for a while, Izuku leaned back in his chair and sighed. He looked at the glass once again and smiled. Something wrong? Aizawa asked. No, I was just thinking about how surprised Kaken would have been to see the once timid Izuku Midoriya happy and trying to be friends with everyone. To tell the truth, it's probably because the only thing I fear now is my master. Everything else pales in comparison. Master? Nizu asked. The man behind Shigaraki. I don't know his name, all I know is that Shigaraki called him master, and that's how I refer to him, Izuku said, gazing at the ceiling. Well, I think that's everything I need to tell you. Very well. If you remember anything else, just call for us again, Nizu said. Of course, Izuku replied. Nizu left the room, but Aizawa stayed behind. Izuku smiled as he stood up and stretched. Aizawa received a call from Nizu saying they would meet back at the school and that he had taken the rest of Class 1A with him. He knew Aizawa still wanted to talk to Izuku alone. Something you need, Aizawa-sensei? Izuku asked. If you were to come out of this place well, what will you do? Aizawa asked, watching Izuku take a seat again. Izuku tilted his head in thought. Who knows? I will get proper treatment for this. I don't want to hurt anyone just because I've gone through something terrible, he said, turning to Aizawa with a smile. I see. Well, like Nizu said, if you need to talk about anything, just have the hospital call us, Aizawa said as he headed for the door. Sensei? Aizawa turned back, his hands still on the door handle. Is it possible for someone like me to become a hero? Izuku asked, looking at his hands resting in his lap. You can be a hero. What's stopping you? Aizawa replied. Izuku's eyes widened in shock. It seemed that was all he needed to hear. Tears streamed down his cheeks for a moment before he began to wipe them away furiously. Thank you, Sensei. I'll do my best to become a hero. Hey Bakugo, have you been visiting Midoriya? Kirishima asked. The hospital won't let anyone in to see him, except for Aunt Inko and the teachers, Bakugo growled. It had been a year since Izuku went to the hospital for treatment. The class knew he had been completing schoolwork there because his name appeared in the exam rankings, but they weren't allowed to see him. Aunt Inko says he's doing well though. Thanks for the update. Everyone has been wondering how he's doing, Kirishima said as the rest of the class began to chatter among themselves, relieved to hear that Izuku was fine. But man, I can't believe we're already in our 3rd year. We're so close to becoming heroes. Yeah, and I'm going to be the #1 hero. Bakugo declared. That's a hefty goal, Bakugo, Ida said. Deku always talked about becoming the #1 hero when we were kids, Bakugo remarked. So you're doing it for Deku? Uraraka asked. Absolutely not. I'm doing this to beat him. Bakugo yelled, letting off small explosions. Sit down, Aizawa said as he opened the classroom door. Everyone took their seats for class to begin. We have a special guest today. The students began to murmur, wondering who it could be, with most speculating about what type of pro hero would visit them in their 3rd year. Come on in. Excitement buzzed through the room as the door slid open and their special guest entered. Du. Everyone jumped from their seats, thrilled to see their friend after so long. Hey guys. Izuku greeted happily. Midoriya has finished his treatment and is now returning to school. Because of his time away, he will be doing a few extensive hero classes, so you won't see him in class for a while until he catches up, Aizawa announced. I don't care what you do right now, I'm going to sleep. You haven't changed at all, Aizawa-sensei, Izuku said cheerfully. Adults don't change much, Aizawa replied as he settled into his sleeping bag and closed his eyes. Izuku moved closer to the class, and they began to talk excitedly, mostly asking how Izuku was and what happened while he was in the hospital. Bakugo is the strongest in the class at the moment. Kirishima says, isn't it tied between Bakugo and Todoroki? Uraraka asks. Oh yeah. Don't put that icy hot guy on the same page as me. Bakugo yells. He turns to Izuku. I'm going to be number 1. I know, but I'll catch up, Kaken, Izuku replies. Oh, you will see me in normal classes but not hero classes until I catch up, just like Sensei said. Izuku grins, and the others stop, a bit startled. What's wrong? You kind of seem the same as you were before, Uraraka says. Oh yeah, don't worry. I can act differently if you want. I was taught to control my emotions, so I won't do anything like I would have before, Izuku explains. You don't have to act differently, Deku-kun, Uraraka reassures him. Oh, Deku-kun, what type of hero are you planning on being? A rescue hero. I can get people out from blocked spaces because I can move them through walls, Izuku says. Happily. That does fit your quirk well, Todoroki comments. Yeah, I thought so too. Before, I would have wanted to be a normal hero who fights and captures villains, but I changed my mind. Then you cannot become the number 1 hero, Bakugo states. Who says that I cannot become the number 1 hero if I'm a rescue hero? Izuku asks. Bakugo grins. You have to work really hard, nerd. I'm not going to let you win that easily, Bakugo says. Midoriya, are you ready for your extensive training? The students look over to the door to see Principal Nizu. Yes, see you guys later. Izuku says, going over to Nizu. He waves goodbye and then leaves with their principal. Immediately after, Aizawa gets up and begins class properly. After a few days, they were allowed to watch one of Izuku's training sessions. Everyone was shocked by how tough it looked. He was pitted against large robots, and then a pro hero jumped in when he defeated the robots to fight him. He would never be able to defeat a pro hero until he was really, really good, but it seemed like he was stronger in some instances. Oh, Aizawa, have you come to show the students how Midoriya is doing? Nizu asks, appearing out of nowhere. Yes, how is he doing? Good. The times that the villains pitted him against the Nomu made him stronger and forced his body to remember how to fight and get out of tough situations. So even if it looks like he might lose, he almost always finds a way out and comes back to go again, Nizu explains. They watch the monitor as Izuku gets cornered by the pro he is currently fighting against. The hero is Midnight. Izuku knows Midnight's quirk. He has been on the receiving end quite a few times. Their goal is to try and catch the other. Midnight is after Midoriya, and Midoriya is after Midnight. They have fought 8 times now, and Midoriya has yet to win, Nizu explains. He hasn't won yet? Uraraka says, shocked. You said 8 times, so this is the 9th? Ida asks. Yes, Nizu confirms. He's getting closer and closer to winning. Izuku is cornered between a building and Midnight. Can't he just go through the wall? Uraraka asks. He could, but then he wouldn't know where Midnight is or whether she has activated her quirk. He needs her in his view, Nizu explains. Izuku suddenly runs towards Midnight. Midnight jumps away to stay out of the reach of the cuffs. If he does catch Midnight, another pro will appear to continue the training. He won't get a chance to rest. Villains won't give you a chance to rest, Aizawa adds. Izuku continues to run towards Midnight. Midnight stops jumping away and activates her quirk. Everyone expects Izuku to stop and re-evaluate his position, but he continues towards Midnight. Midnight is about to jump away when Izuku jumps over her. He lands behind her and quickly grabs her arm, putting one of his legs under hers to trip her. He puts the cuffs on. How did you? Midnight asks. Izuku doesn't respond, and Midnight realizes what he has done. You're holding your breath. Izuku gives her a smile when suddenly a loud voice appears. Present Mike jumps down from a small building and lands. When Izuku sees him, he acts immediately. He takes the cuffs from Midnight's waist and turns to run but stops when Mike screams his way. Izuku covers his ears. He turns around to face Mike. "What are you going to do, charge me?" Mike asks. Izuku runs towards Mike but suddenly changes direction and bolts away, then through a building. The camera manages to find him gasping because he had been holding his breath due to Midnight's quirk. "You can't hide!" Mike yells. The sound causes the building to shake, and Izuku covers his ears again. He knows that Mike is just on the other side of the wall. Izuku pulls his hands away from his ears and gets the cuffs ready. Mike is still yelling towards him. His ears, they are bleeding. How can he stand that? He's so close to Mike-sensei too. Izuku runs through the wall. Mike jumps back, shocked but not fast enough. Izuku grabs his wrist and puts the cuffs on him. Nizu produces a walkie-talkie. "Okay, that's enough. Bring everyone in," he says. Mike and Midnight are uncuffed, and the three come into the observation room. "Guys," Izuku yells when he sees the others. "Don't be so loud," Bakugo yells. "Sorry, I cannot hear well at the moment," Izuku replies. Recovery Girl takes Izuku to a separate room. "How did he do, Midnight Mike?" Nizu asks. "He's improving very quickly," Midnight says. "I think he will be up to speed after a few more sessions," Mike adds. "Good," Nizu says. After those few more days, Izuku joins Class 1A with their hero classes. The day the heroes in training graduate and become pro-heroes arrives. "Congratulations, kids," Nizu says. All of the students start to talk among themselves about which agency they would like to go to now that they have graduated from school. "Hey, Deku-kun, what agency do you want to go to?" Uraraka asks. "I don't know, whichever will take me," Izuku replies. "I already know where I'm going," Bakugo says smugly. "That's good, Kaken," Izuku responds. He looks at his watch. "Oh, I better get going home, Mom wants to celebrate." "Huh, you running?" Bakugo asks. "I'm not running, Kaken. Can you close your eyes for me?" Izuku requests. "The heck would I do that for?" Bakugo replies. "Please." Izuku asks. Bakugo tsks and then closes his eyes. Izuku kisses Bakugo's cheek gently. "See you later, Kaken." Izuku runs down the road toward his house, leaving Bakugo and the rest of his class in shock. "Hey nerd, get back here." "Kaken." "Tisk." "Hello, Midoriya-kun." "Hello, Todoroki-kun." Izuku skips over to his desk behind Bakugo. He takes his seat, and Bakugo turns around in his chair. Izuku notices him watching and grins. "Okay class, get ready," Aizawa says as he walks into the classroom. Everyone takes their seats and class begins. Soon, they are outside preparing for hero training. Izuku still needs to practice controlling his quirk, as he isn't as skilled as the other kids who have had their quirks since they were 4 years old. "Midoriya, go practice your quirk control," Aizawa instructs. Again?" Izuku asks, a bit disappointed. "Yes, again. You need to learn to control your quirk just like the rest of your classmates." "I don't want anything happening to you or your classmates," he replies. "Fine, I understand." Izuku walks over to a clearing with a few trees and begins the quirk control assessments Aizawa assigned. Afterward, the other students start their activities to strengthen their quirks and gain more control over them. "Aizawa-sensei, when do you think Midoriya-kun can join the regular classes?" Uraraka asks. "He needs to catch up to all of you in terms of control. With how fast he is progressing, probably about another month," Aizawa responds. After classes, as everyone prepares to head back to their dorms, Bakugo approaches Izuku, who is finishing packing his books. "Deku." Izuku looks up to see Bakugo. "Yes, Kaken?" "My mom wants to see you," he says. I haven't seen Auntie for a long time, not since I was rescued," Izuku replies with a grin. "When are we going to see her?" "Tonight, for dinner." "I got permission," Bakugo says. "Yay." After returning to their dorm to change, Bakugo and Izuku head to Bakugo's house for dinner with his parents. Inko joins them since she lives just 5 minutes away. "Aizu!" Mitsuki exclaims happily, hugging Izuku as he walks through the door. "Hello, Auntie Mitsuki," he replies, equally cheerful. "Hello, Izuku." Hello, sir, Izuku says when Bakugo's father greets him. He knows he cannot make Izuku refer to him in a more familiar tone like his wife, so he accepts the greeting, and they continue into the living room. Bakugo and his mother cook, and from the kitchen, their playful banter can be heard. How has school been for you, Izuku? A lot has happened, Mitsuki asks. It's been great. I was so happy to see Kaken again when I started going to UA, Izuku replies. Katsuki was shocked to see you there. He was always so worried about you when you went missing. I missed him too. I always dreamed that Kaken would be the one to save me. He has always been my hero. You look up to Katsuki, don't you, Izu? Inko asks, smiling as her son beams at the question. Yes, I have always admired Kaken, even before he got his quirk. Dinner. Mitsuki calls from the kitchen. Everyone gets up and heads to the dining room table. The food is brought out and served. Katsudon. Izuku beams. Your favorite, Mitsuki says as she sits down. Katsuki learned how to make it because you like it so much. Shut up, old hag. Bakugo's outburst is met with a playful slap on the back of the head. Don't yell at the table. Mitsuki, please. Oh, sorry, dear. Please enjoy, Mitsuki says with a smile. After dinner, Bakugo grabs Izuku and takes him outside without a word. He leads him to Dakoba Municipal Beach, which was once filled with trash but is now clean. Wow, it was so dirty before, Izuku says. I wanted to show it to you, Bakugo replies. Thanks, Kaken. Izuku pulls Bakugo closer, giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. Bakugo pulls away, grumbling and covering his cheek. Are you embarrassed, Kaken? Shut up. Stupid Deku, he mumbles, though Izuku can hear the hint of softness in his tone. Mum says you have always admired me. Is that true? What do you think, Kaken? Just answer the question, nerd. Bakugo snaps, though his tone is less harsh. Yeah, I've always admired you, Kaken. Why do you think I followed you even when you treated me so harshly? Izuku asks, still holding Bakugo's arm and giving it a gentle squeeze. Bakugo flexes his fists, trying to release some tension. I just thought you were following me because you had no other friends. Yup, I thought of you as my best friend, Kaken. I didn't need anyone else. That's stupid, stupid Deku. Bakugo says quietly. I have friends now, if that makes it better, Izuku replies, turning his gaze to the colorful sunset. The sky is painted in pinks and purples, and he appreciates the beauty of the outside world more after being locked away for so long. Round face and the other extras at school say you like me, Bakugo says, and Izuku giggles. Why do you think I kiss you? He asks playfully. Because you're an idiot? No, because I like you. I just don't kiss you properly because you'd get mad at me, Izuku says, holding back more giggles. Bakugo could be so dense sometimes. Their little conversation faded into silence as the colors in the sky grew darker. Slowly, Bakugo moved his arm from Izuku's grasp. Izuku felt a twinge of disappointment until he noticed Bakugo intertwining his fingers with his own. A grin spread across Izuku's face as he tightened his hold. We should head back to your house, Kaken, Izuku suggested. As Izuku turned away to leave, Bakugo pulled him back by the hand he was holding and tilted his chin up. Bakugo's lips brushed against Izuku's, and Izuku's eyes widened in surprise as the kiss lingered for a moment. When Bakugo pulled away, Izuku could see a faint blush on his cheeks, which made his own cheeks heat up. What was that, Kaken? Izuku asked, hoping to tease the explosive blonde. Shut up, nerd. Let's go. Bakugo dropped Izuku's hand and started walking away, but Izuku quickly followed, grabbing his hand again. Did you just kiss me? Do you like me? Izuku pressed. Shut up. If you don't like me, why did you kiss me? Why are you letting me hold on to you? If you didn't like me, you would have tried to blow me up or yelled at me, but you didn't. That means you like me a little, right? Right. Bakugo remained silent. Catch, Izuku's sentence was interrupted when Bakugo kissed him again, this time with more intensity. When he pulled away, Izuku was left speechless. He noticed Bakugo's lips moving but couldn't hear what he was trying to say. What was that, Kaken? I didn't hear you. Say it again. Bakugo remained quiet, staring into Izuku's bright green eyes. What did you say, Kakin? Tell me, I didn't hear you. Let's date, stupid nerd. Bakugo finally yelled, clearly annoyed by Izuku's persistent questions. Okay,